Mm.
Hey, my name is King, or as some of you might know me better, Israel. I've gotten around, but hopefully you recognize me from my own channel, King Tannic. There's a new show coming to the Burnettwork that I think is pretty exciting. Welcome to the Otaku Experience, hosted by yours truly. There is going to be a weekly series where we dive into the news and the world of anime, manga, and whatever the heck else Japan has to offer us. The show will be pre-recorded and premiere on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time or 5 p.m. Eastern right here on the Burnettwork YouTube channel.
Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
There's a company called Hot Toys, and they make these insanely realistic, renderings of characters. They do them for all the Marvel characters or whatever, and they look so much like you. It's disturbing, actually. Like, scary. They look so much like you, but they're tiny. They're like 18 inches or something like that. They actually that's what's crazy about that company is they hand make the, like, they carve the mold of, thank you, of the.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, good evening, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, and whatever, call me what you want. I'm sure people have a lot of other names they want to call me, but I'm your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm, of course, Robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Midnight Musings number 53. Marching into our second year of Midnight Musings. And of course, it's not a show without billowing. And no one can billow like my co-host. You know her, you love her. She's Well, hello. You look lovely tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. I so appreciate that. And it's always wonderful.
So do I.
It's Midnight Musings, Robert. It's time to have some fun. Talk about entertainment. I love Midnight Musings, Robert.
I do too. I do too. I just want to point out before we start, Lana Ewan got me her new review, and I promised her I'd get it up before this show started. And lo and behold, I did. Let me just tell you, I had a little keyboard snafu. I spilled a bunch of water on my keyboard. Probably, it's not the first time, but it was certainly the last time. And I had to go get a new keyboard. So I did. And I barely made it back in time. That's why we're starting 15 minutes late. But there's a reason. That's my excuse. I have a new Apple keyboard. All good. Because I had to drive a half an hour to go to the Apple store. So there you go. And at the same time, I promised Lana that I would get her review up before the show started. So I did that. See, I take care of the people that I love. So there you go. By the way, her review this week is for a favorite of mine, Adrian Lyne's 1990 film Jacob's Ladder. Now, I'll tell you something that's really interesting about Jacob's Ladder. So the American Film Institute, AFI, used to publish a magazine. And in the 80s, one of they would have like the 10 greatest unproduced screenplays in Hollywood. And Jacob's Ladder was on that list for a very long time. And Jacob's Ladder was on, it was written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who wrote like Ghost and I believe Douglas Trumbull's Brainstorm. And Cinefantastique magazine did an expose on Jacob's Ladder. And for those of you who've seen the movie, it's very grounded. The movie's very grounded, but it has some of the most terrifying in-camera effects, in my mind, ever done. There's a dance sequence where Elizabeth Pena may or may not be a demon. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi? I mean, it's insane, and a lot of the in-camera effects were done with various frame rates. It's really incredible. But the movie that ended up getting made was very different. The script at the end of the movie, full on, it was phantasmagoria. I mean, there were winged demons flying through purgatory, and they decided, I think rightfully so, Adrian Lyne went in a different direction and kept it very, very grounded. And it was a little bit more ambiguous than what I thought that I was getting. And I have to say, the first time I was so excited to see Jacob's Ladder, and it was somehow I got tickets to go see it on the Columbia lot, which is now the Sony lot. And I thought everybody had been kind of tracking this movie for years. I was so excited to see this movie. I went like 3 hours early.
Wow.
I thought, I know, and it's on a lot. And whenever you get to go on a lot, if you go early, it's because you wander around the lot. You know, you want to go see the lot. You want to go, maybe something's shooting. Nobody just stands in line for a fucking movie on a lot. Of course, I did, and the only other person I want to say he was there before me was my friend Dan Schweiger, who I later went to work for at Full Moon. But I met him in line. We were the first two idiots. He's like, yeah, man. Yeah, I read the article in CFQ and American Film, man. And this is like one of the 10 greats. He knew all the same shit I knew. I'm like, okay, we're going to be lifelong friends. But that was the first time I saw Jacob's Ladder, 1990, on the Sony lot here in town. It was the Columbia lot then. And so I don't know why I'm telling this story. Hey, it's Midnight Musings. I can tell whatever story I want. But that's the story about when I saw Jacob's Ladder. So I did not know that Lana was going to review Jacob's Ladder this week. And I have to say, not only do I think I love her reviews, I think she does a fantastic job. It's almost like Christmas. Like I didn't know she was going to do From Beyond.
It does feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then she's, you know, they yesterday she goes, here's a little preview, and I of course I noticed the thumbnail right away. You know, Tim Robbins stars, and I knew exactly what she was doing, and I was like, goody, 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 goody. You know, I can't wait to get it. Here's the thing: in order to get it up on time, I haven't watched it. I haven't seen the review.
I previewed it.
So I didn't have time. So I didn't get to see the review. I'm sure it's as good as all our other reviews. It's 9 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lana Yuen reviews. Check out the playlist. Watch all of her reviews. Her and her husband Alan, they create magic. Magic. So yeah, that's all good. What about you? How was your week?
My week was pretty good. I mean, it started off very warm here in New York, and then it got cold, and it, you know, before you know it, it's Memorial Weekend, Robert, and you know, I can smell barbecue, you know, grilling in the air, and the coconut oil of, you know, like suntan lotion. That's what it smells like here in Long Beach in the summer. It smells like charcoal briquettes and coconut oil suntan lotion in the summer. So I'm ready for it.
That sounds like, because don't you live like a block away from the beach or something?
I'm a few blocks away. Yes, I'm within walking distance. That's why I moved here, so that I could be right near the ocean. Do you go to the ocean every day? Do you like run on the beach? I don't run on the beach, but there's a boardwalk that I go to, and there's like a whole group of people who go and exercise in the morning, and then we meet for coffee and gossip and stuff like that. And we're talking like 4 or 5 a.m. that we
wow.
do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, that's like Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. When he's you know, money never sleeps, buddy boy. You know, when he's on the beach, I wish you could see it here. Sun's coming up. Because you guys are on the East Coast, so you get to see the sun rise.
Yes, we do. And there's it's all ages, like, there's 80-year-olds on that boardwalk, in the morning, and they're going strong. So there's no age difference or anything, like everybody's represented, and it's great. It's a wonderful thing to have right here.
Nice. So I got a shipping notice from Sideshow.
Oh.
And I was like, what the hell? I didn't expect anything from Sideshow. Like, I had no idea. And I couldn't figure out like what. It turns out, I think Wanda Maximoff, the WandaVision Wanda Maximoff shipped. But I thought they had it in Hong Kong. I didn't know that they had it, that Sideshow had it. So
Right.
apparently I'm just going to get it tomorrow.
That's great.
It wasn't so great for my bank account. I wasn't expecting it, but apparently I ordered it.
She cost a bit more. I remember when she and Vision were announced, and they were a little bit pricier, and people were like, "Why is she so much more money?" But yeah, it's a great buy. I mean, it's great that you can get that hot toy. It's a hot toy, right?
Yeah, it's a hot toy. It's a hot toy. Yeah, little Wanda. I got some WandaVision for her. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's wonderful that she's coming out now. I mean, it's been 2 years, Robert, right?
I know.
It's 2 years since WandaVision, over 2 years.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's funny because I have this X-Men. I have a lot of X-Men figure. I love the X-Men. So the Scarlet Witch figure I'll just put with the rest of the X-Men. And she's actually, I have 3 Scarlet Witch hot toys.
Okay, so you have the Voltron. What is it? Age of Voltron is the
Yes, I have the Age of Ultron, and then I've got
Voltron. Yeah, I said Voltron.
Then I've got something else. I don't know which one it is. I don't remember. It's funny, I don't remember.
Mhm.
But yeah, I got the Age of Ultron. That was the one that was difficult to get.
Maybe it's Civil War.
Yeah,
is the other.
it might be Civil War.
Mhm.
It might be. And then of course, So Toys released their Rogue figure,
Oh, really? Did they really?
or as they call her, Anna Marie. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
it's really, yeah, it came out this week. And what's really interesting, so Upper Deck has been sending me these lithographs, and
Yeah.
and it was funny because I said this is the one that they sent me. This,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's awesome. But it had Rogue, and I was like, boy, it would be really nice to have this Rogue in. And sure enough, So Toys, ask and you shall receive. So I apparently, I'm getting my Anna Marie, and it comes with 2 different head sculpts, which I forgot. One where she's kind of smiling, and of course, I have the third-party Gambit figure that So Toys made. So bow chicka bow bow wow, yeah. So
Exciting, Robert.
I know I can have her steal Carol Danvers' powers and then get it on with Gambit.
I wish we would see that in the movies or in a TV show or something.
I think it's coming soon.
It's coming hard, Robert. It's coming hard.
Ooh. So you had a good week. You're going to the beach. Things are happening. Did you see any movies?
Yeah.
You see anything?
Yeah.
Now, are you a Succession fan?
I haven't been watching Succession. No, I'm sorry,
Okay,
Robert.
because the series finale is this weekend,
Yeah.
and I'm chomping at the bit. I can't wait.
How many seasons has Succession had?
4.
And did people expect the season 4 to end now, or was it something that surprised everybody?
I think no. At the beginning of the season, I don't think people thought it was going to end. Then they announced it was the last season. But you know what? I like the fact this season's been incredibly strong. It's been really, really good. Every episode's been great. So I think it's get out while the getting's good. It's 4 seasons. It's a great show. People really like it, and yeah, I think that's a good thing. Why not?
It's a good thing.
It is. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to it. So we shall see. By the way, Ahmed E says that this is his favorite part of the week. Love you guys all the way from Sydney, Australia, where I got to live for a year. Sydney, Australia is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Thank you for the kind words. And Robert, it's pretty much Fast 10 versus Mermaids tonight.
It's Fast 10. That's why I said cars versus fish, And wow, has Little Mermaid been divisive? People have been like, you know what's really interesting? So I heard that the movie is actually set in the Caribbean.
Okay.
They've moved the location. So Haley, is it Haley Bailey? Halle Bailey?
Yes, it's Bailey.
Haley Bailey. I mean,
Bailey, yeah.
I think she looks fantastic as a
She's
mermaid.
stunningly beautiful.
I mean, she's stunning, and I heard some of her singing on the radio today, and sounds incredible. So I'm like a good choice. I don't know, the fact that it's in the Caribbean. That's what I always said. Like Sebastian was always from the Caribbean anyway. So
yeah.
I don't. I guess I don't really. There's been all of this really kind of ugly backlash about the movie. I mean, for me, it doesn't really bother me. Like, no one got upset when Will Smith was the genie in Aladdin. I mean, the genie's a genie, just like a mermaid's a mermaid. Like, I used to think, like, I like Little Mermaid, the original, when it came out, but I thought Ariel looked a little too Midwest corn-fed for me. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
if you want to see, to me, the ultimate live-action mermaid movie, have you ever heard of a movie called The Lure? Lure?
I think I have, because when I was looking up information about this movie, I queried just Mermaid, and a bunch of stuff came up, and a bunch of horror films came up as well. And I don't know if it's the same one, but in this, like, they cut off her tail. Like, it's kind of weird or something.
Oh yeah, it's a Polish. First of all, it's the debut film from a woman director, and I forgive me, I don't remember her name, and if I did have her name in front of me, I would mispronounce it anyway. It is a horror musical about two mermaids that end up working in a gentleman's club.
Right.
And they sing. And it's fucking great. And Criterion put it out on Blu-ray. So if you haven't seen The Lure and you don't plan on going to see The Little Mermaid this weekend, watch The Lure. It's a mermaid movie. I wholeheartedly recommend. You can really, let's just say, sink your teeth into it. So yeah, look at it. If you haven't seen The Lure, it's got my number one endorsement. It's a bonkers movie that is really, really good. So
yeah.
But I'm gonna go see the Little Mermaid. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna surpass Cinderella. I loved Cinderella, the live action Cinderella that Kenneth Branagh directed, that Lily James stars in.
Yes.
I love that movie. And I love Lily James. I'll watch Lily James in anything, really. And I didn't even want to go see Cinderella. I'm like, why do I want to go see a live action Cinderella? But I liked it.
She was wonderful in it, and I've been watching her in Downton Abbey for a long time. But the dress that she wore, it did seem like a fairy tale. That blue dress, I thought that they knocked it out of the park with that part. But it was a great film, and I enjoyed that version too. So
yeah. Our friend King Tannic sends in a super sticker. By the way, I mentioned him on Christian Harloff's show. I was on one of Christian Harloff's shows this week, and I saw some people came over and watched King Tannic's latest episode from I liked seeing that from Harloff's show. So shout out to him. Our friend 1001 Johnny says, Rob, can I get a shout out for my grandpa, Rick Kenzel? He's been a film lover since the tickets cost 12 cents. He works as a carpenter in Palmdale, California. I love him dearly. Well, 101 Johnny, here's to you, buddy. Hey, Rick, Grandpa Rick Kenzel. It's Rob Burnett, and it's here on Midnight Musings, and a big. I guess is it your birthday? I guess it's not your birthday. We're just giving you a shout out for being a film fan. So, hey, 12-cent tickets. Not even I go back that far. So I salute you, sir. And I worked in Palmdale when I worked on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. We built a gas station up there, and people kept stopping thinking it was a real gas station. It was not. It was not. Joe Panora says, "What about Splash? Best mermaid movie ever."
I love Splash.
Yeah, Splash is good, but okay. But watch The Lure. Trust me, it's a different kind of a movie. I mean,
The
I'm not,
lore, like they become like almost there's strippers in the lore. Like it's an adult
yeah,
version of the
yeah,
film. I mean, as much as I fantasize about having Riddick versus the Little Mermaid, I think the lore kind of maybe has fulfilled that desire of having something a little raunchier. But
yeah. The lure is a little bit more adult, and it's weird because it's European,
yes,
and frankly, so is the Little Mermaid. The original
yes,
story
that's right.
is
She
is
is.
so yeah,
It's Hans Christian Andersen, right?
it is. It is Hans Christian, and there is. I've been to Copenhagen, and there's a Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen, commemorating
Yes.
old Hans, Booby,
Hans. I'm sorry, Hans Christian.
Hans. Hans is so hot right now.
Yeah, he sure is.
All
God.
good. So yeah,
But Robert, you were talking about this actress, and when it was announced that she was going to be in this, and I think a lot of people were very skeptical. I think part of the skepticism really is because of what Disney has been making and how people have been responding to. They've been kind of disappointed in what they've been seeing. But honestly, looking at this young woman and her performance, and we've seen there was like an in concert version of The Little Mermaid maybe a year or two ago.
yeah.
um it's not the first time we've seen anything like this. To be honest with you, she looks good in it. And oh boy, my light went off. She looks good in it. And sorry to
Ooh.
reset my light. Sorry. She looks good in the role. So I don't know what the concern was, but to be honest with you, Robert, I think that she's a beautiful voice. She's a fantastic performer. And I can't really see anything wrong with it. I don't know about the story, like if they changed the story. Do you know if they changed the story at all?
I don't think so. I think the story. I know they've added some songs. Howard Asherman's passed away, so Alan Menken worked with Lin-Manuel Miranda to come up with some more songs, which is fine with me. I mean, give the audience something new, which I don't have a problem with that at all. But again, I think that there's the whole idea of affirmative action or something, and all of this. I don't see it that way, only because a mermaid's a fantasy character. And I always thought that Ariel was too white bread anyway from the original. Like, you want, like, Daryl Hannah, even though she's, very Caucasian, but she's interesting. She's a big girl. Like, seriously, she's tall, and she had an ethereal quality to her anyway. I mean, she's kind of a superwoman.
Yes.
And if you saw her, she was in a movie with Aidan Quinn that I recommend everybody watch. One of the great unsung teen films of the 80s that no one's seen, called Reckless. If you've never seen Reckless, watch the trailer. Aidan Quinn and Daryl Hannah, and they have a great use of Romeo Void's song, I Might Like You Better If We Slept Together. If you know that tune, but it's probably not. But hey, it's a great movie. Check it out. See Reckless. Love it. And Daryl Hannah was great in Splash. Do you know that movie is going to be 40 years old next year?
I know. I mean, Tom Hanks was her co-star in the film, and he kind of had to take this leap of faith. I kind of liked how it ended because he had to go with her to, I guess, wherever they reside now. But it did have a sexual tone to it, though. It was adult, an adult version of a mermaid. She was not a child, so there was definitely some kind of attraction between Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, and it was supposed to be that way. He was supposed to be completely, enamored with her. And when they even when they captured her and they put her in that big tank, remember they were like going to study her, and and you just kind of like saw her floating in the water, and you're like, this is not right. She needs to get out of that tank. And it was very interesting, the desire that he had to release her to make sure she could get free. And I think a follow-up film to that is it The Shape of Water or
Yeah. The Guillermo, that won Best Picture. Guillermo del Toro's Shape of Water.
Yes, I think that kind of had some similar tones to it. And
that had some full-on Gilman sex too.
Yeah, it was, because they were like, they even went so far in that movie to ask her, well, how do you do it? And the woman says, well, it grows. So, a problem solved. They made sure.
I've been saying that since I was 13.
they made sure that the ladies knew that he was able to perform whatever he needed to do. And then that was like, it sealed the deal, and that was going to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. See, Robert?
I
That's
mean,
all I say.
that's all she wrote, man. That's all she wrote. No,
Well,
but
I think that formula works, for adults as well, in an adult context.
yeah, yeah. It does. I mean, and there's something, again, the erotic monster story. I'm a big fan of that. The otherworldly people falling in love with creatures, men falling in love with mermaids, women falling in love with beasts or gillmen or whatever.
I think Daryl Hannah was topless through like a good portion of that film too, if I remember correctly.
I don't know if she was topless because it was still Touchstone. It was actually the very first Touchstone movie. But when it went up on Disney Plus, they did that ridiculous. They digitized her hair coming down over her ass when she runs into the ocean. I mean, it's so silly. On one hand, Disney. We live in such a bizarre world. On one hand, everybody's talking about LGBTQ rights and transitioning and non-gender conforming, and then they cover Daryl Hannah's beautiful ass. Like, what kind of world are we living in? Why is a female ass patriarchal now?
But it was pure. It wasn't like what you were seeing was not.
No, and that was the whole thing. It was pure, and the fact is, the point of it reminded you it wasn't about her bare ass. I mean, it was, but it's reminding you that you're watching. This is the last vestige of her humanity. Her whole lower portion is about to go turn into a giant fishtail. So, I mean, are we that prudish and stupid in this country? I mean, we really are dumb.
It really was not like egregious nudity or anything like that. You would naturally expect her to not have clothes. Like, this is what would happen. So, it was weird that they couldn't be adult about that, but they felt they had to make a change. But Robert, in regards to this film, I really do wonder. I think there's going to be a lot of little girls who are going to love this film. I think they're going to see it and they're going to watch it and be singing along and enjoy it. A lot of little girls will like this. I don't think there's going to be anybody, let's say hypothetically it's made for a little girl. I'm not going to say that this is not appropriate for adults, but I do get the sense that this is a children's movie, just personally speaking. And, I think a lot of children are going to love it, Robert.
Well, it made $10 million last night in previews, which is like the 6th biggest opening or something ever or something like that in terms of previews. It's going to be huge. And it'll be another, the Lion King made 1.5 billion. Aladdin, the live action Aladdin made over $1 billion. I would not be surprised if this makes a ton of money.
Now, I'm not quite sure why there was any backlash associated with it all. How many years has it been since Disney has done anything with The Little Mermaid at all? Really? How many years has it been?
That was what started the Disney Renaissance. But it's all about people are seeing it as another a race swapping thing, and this particular case, I never saw it that way. Like they cast the best person they could find, and I really love her face. I mean, to me, she looks like a proper mermaid to me. Like, I don't look at her and go, I don't see her human race. I'm like, she's a mermaid. Her face, she has a great mermaid face, and I'm sure that they did not cast her lightly. They went around and they found the best person for the role who could also sing.
I liked her hair too, what they did with her hair. I think it looks beautiful. I think the whole thing looks amazing, and I think she's also very graceful in this. I'm just thinking to myself that it is something that's made for children, and it should also be approached that way as well.
It's here's what Deadline says. As we told you, once a Disney princess film gets momentum, well, it's wandering free at the box office. Such is the case for The Little Mermaid, which, after a $10.3 million opening in previews, is seeing $38 million for Friday, which will result in $105 million 3-day and $125 million 4-day opening per sources. Again, a great result for a predominantly female-skewing tentpole. It's the smaller movies aimed at women that the marketplace is still on the fence about. Little Mermaid's success here with female moviegoers also paves the way for another big summer pick, Warner Brothers' Barbie, at the end of July.
Yes.
If the Rob Marshall-directed musical keeps pace, The Little Mermaid will rank as the 4th highest Memorial Day opening ever.
Wow.
After Top Gun Maverick last year, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Hands down, The Little Mermaid buries Aladdin's 4-day start over the holiday of $116.8 million to become the best for a live-action take on a Disney tune. So the movie is a huge hit. So, and you know what? I'm always happy when a movie's a huge hit.
Especially a musical, Robert. Especially a musical.
Yes.
But I know that there have been a number of musicals that have come out, but it's not always easy to sell something like that. And I think parents, and whole families will be going to see this film.
By the way, somebody in the chat said I said her face looked like a fish. I did not say that. I said her face looked like a mermaid. Her face has an ethereal quality to it. Didn't say she looked like a fish. She looks like a mermaid. And I'll tell you something. I used to date the first woman I ever fell in love with. I've told the story about her, but her name is Marina. And when I first met her, she had long cascading red hair that went down to her ass.
Wow.
And she had perfectly white skin, and everyone said she looked like a mermaid. And Halle Bailey is it Halle Bailey? It's Halle Bailey.
Yes.
I always say Haley. I never get her name right. But she had the same kind of thing, this kind of a wider, rounder face that she looked like a mermaid. And I thought, she was beautiful. And Halle Bailey has that same quality that Marina had. So, and Marina's name was Marina. So
how ironic.
She looked like a mermaid. And I like those mermaids. That's why I like the lure. And that's why I like Splash.
Yes.
And I
still dream of a chronicle, I wouldn't mind Vin Diesel being the prince, but he'd have to be Riddick. And that's the prince version. And she would, there'd be a Little Mermaid. This is my fantasy Little Mermaid combination with Vin Diesel, but as Riddick. So how would that film turn out?
By the way, Vin Diesel showed up at the AMC in Times Square tonight.
Yeah.
He was there. He was Times Square.
That's right.
Made an appearance in your town. He's there. Maybe you can go find him later. Boom.
Are you trying to hook me up with Vin Diesel, Robert?
Hey, I believe everybody should be hooked up with Vin Diesel. Come on.
You know something? He used to be a bouncer at a club I used to go to when I was, very young. Had no idea he was there all those years, but I always have a certain fondness for Vin Diesel for being a bouncer at the Tunnel while I was there as a kid going clubbing in New York. So who knew that he was there at the same time, making sure that we, that the music stayed on and that, the bad guys were shuffled out the door. So there was that. But yeah, I think he's great. I think he's wonderful. And Robert, we're also talking about Fast 10. Robert, you have seen that film.
I finally did. Yes, I did.
Okay. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no, Robert, no.
I liked it more than I liked Fast 9.
Okay.
But any pretense of, somebody said I needed to watch it like I watch Manifest, because Manifest it's just gobbledygook. And see, here's my fundamental problem with where the Fast and the Furious franchise is. Like, I love car chase movies. I love a good car chase movie. And the reason that we love great car chases is because we know how dangerous they can be and how at any one moment you can get wiped out and get crushed or whatever.
Right.
And the whole thing about the Fast and the Furious franchise is when it began, everything was very realistic. There was no CG. It wasn't really until the fourth movie, Fast and Furious, that they have these underground tunnels that the cars, the drug tunnels, and like the first three movies. I mean, I love the drift. Fast and Furious 3. I love the drift. And I mean, they have real car chases inside. People are drifting in parking structures.
Yes, it's fantastic.
In parking structures or on mountain roads. And
it's just like, oh, this is so freaking cool. I want to drift. I want to get a car and just God, it was amazing.
I mean, the cars in this movie, all these action scenes, you might as well be driving cars on the Death Star. I mean, none of it. There is no grounding in reality at all. There's no pretense of reality. And my whole thing about it is, it used to be, I mean, up until Fast Five, which I think is the masterpiece of the franchise. You know, it's so weird because now we've had 5 more movies where they've spun off into oblivion. And while Jason Momoa was really fun to watch, even him, I'm like, what universe does any of this take place in? It doesn't have any bearing on, you know, we're going globe trotting and all that, but I can't enjoy. I've enjoyed the movies less and less every time that comes out. I've enjoyed them less and less because they're just no longer grounded in reality. Mm-hmm. And even the action scenes, I'm like, this would just never happen. And the cartoon, it doesn't, none of it makes me, I'm not excited by this action because there's no grounding in reality in it at all. And so when I watch it, I'm like, okay, you know, I was entertained watching it, but I don't like the franchise anymore. You know, it's a franchise that I go and see that I used to really like, but I've stopped. I loved up until Fast Five. I loved even Too Fast, Too Furious is more entertaining to me, and it's not a great movie, than watching these later movies. I mean, I'm watching this going, this is $350 million it cost to make this movie.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And I'm just looking at this going, this is not, I'm not entertained by this. I'd much rather go back and watch, and I don't mean to be like people who like it, and I love this franchise. But the last 5 movies have spun off into oblivion to the point where it doesn't even make much sense anymore. And you know, the first movie, if you go back and you look at it and people say, oh, it's like a Point Break ripoff, and indeed it is, but what I loved about it was the different tribes in LA. I love this whole, you know, the car culture in LA, and you've got the different the Asian groups and the Hispanic groups and the black groups, and I like that because, you know, I live here. And so I like that the different ethnicities, and you know, these guys have the Asian dudes have the rice rockets and whatever. I mean, I liked all of that, and I thought that that was a really cool element of it. You know, because it just felt grounded. Like, hey, if you knew which streets to go on late at night in LA, you could go watch this stuff. You could go see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now it's like, come on. You know, and I can't. I watch this and I'm just like, I mean, I get it, and the movie is not doing very well domestically. Mm-hmm. It's going to be okay overseas. It's not doing well domestically because I think that Americans, our culture is so uniquely tied to our cars. We have a car culture, muscle cars, and I mean, not so much anymore because kids don't grow up driving cars anymore. So there's, you know, kids don't even get their licenses at 16. So we don't have that same connection to cars, especially youth doesn't have. I mean, some people do. Like I love YouTube car channels, you know, people like the Strad Man, and I'll watch him. But daily DDE, daily driven exotics and things like that. I'll watch those channels, but we just don't have that connection to cars anymore. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I think back to movies like The Road Warrior, or even, you know, Fury Road, the Mad Max movies, or even one of my favorite satanic cult movies from the 70s, Race with the Devil. There's a great car chase movie where they're chasing this couple. These two couples are in a Winnebago, and these satanic cultists are chasing them all over the American Southwest. I mean, and all they have is like shotguns, and people are trying to get into their Winnebago on the road. It's awesome. Or Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry.
Mad Max.
Yeah. I mean, 2-lane blacktop, Vanishing Point. Like, I love that stuff. And, you know, I look at this and I'm like, $350 million. You know what I could have done with $350 million? You know how many Tango Shaloms that is?
Yes, I do.
That's like 350 Tango Shaloms. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's the engine that keeps the Hollywood machine going, but I just can't help but think that and they're gonna make 2 more. Like,
Well, Robert, I have to be honest with you. You make a lot of good points with this.
you can
But
like it. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hold it against you.
listen, Robert, there was probably two things in the film that were impossible. But even so, Robert, Jason Momoa was in this film. I'm sorry, Robert,
Why did I
but
know you were gonna go there?
listen, Robert, it's not just even Jason Momoa, but I'm going to get to the rest of the crew in a minute. Jason Momoa was in this film, and I just imagine him on a motorcycle. I would just hold on tight and just go for the ride on this one, with my hair billowing in
Oh,
the
I bet
breeze.
you would.
And I don't care if he's blowing up a home. I'm like, yeah, let's just go for it. I mean, he made me want to like that character. And I don't always like the bad guys, but he seemed insane. And I liked the insanity. It was nice to kind of have somebody who looked incredible, but was completely bonkers and crazy and had the ability to mess with people. So that was kind of
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, he was great. He was a lot of fun to watch. I really.
And they included Alan Richson, who I love from Reacher. I think he looked even hotter in this. I didn't think he could get any hotter, but they had him walking around all dirty and grimy and kind of like with an attitude. And he had on freaking leather pants. And I was like, I can't take this. I can't. I don't. Oh my God. It was like a lot. Ludacris, of course, was there. Jai Briggs, I think, was in there. All these hot guys, Robert. And then Vin Diesel just in his quiet, stoic self, looking all hot and pumped. Robert, this was total eye candy. I can't stop. I couldn't stop drooling seeing this film. I just was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I just, after a while, I was like, I don't care. There's going to be an airplane that's going to land on the highway. The cars are going to ride in. It's going to take off, then it's going to land, and it's going to do a 380 or something. I didn't care anymore. I was just so shocked at how many cool stars were in this film. And it's true, it could have been a lot better. I'm not saying it was a perfect film, but Robert, this felt like a summer blockbuster to me. And I think that people just want to have fun with this, just like they had fun with Fast 9. They didn't care at the time. I don't think, maybe, who knows how much this film is going to make. I think it's going to do great, just like Fast 9 did overseas, as you said. But you're right, it's stepping away from the cars. I didn't see as many cool cars. In fact, I saw a car that looked like it was something out of Mad Max. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting right now. It's domestically it's at 84 million, almost 85 million, and internationally it's at 270 million.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that because action translates. You don't need to know. There's less of a language barrier with a movie like this. I understand that. I get it.
But I also think that a film like John Wick 4, how much has that film made? Because it seems like just even by effort alone, the action scenes and everything, seems like there was more effort put into John Wick than, let's say.
Different. I mean, John Wick 4 has made 428,910,976 and for the John Wick franchise, because the John Wick franchise doesn't cost $350 million. So that's a really great result for this film. And this became, the first John Wick was a relatively small, contained movie. And I don't think anyone would have foreseen that, that they were going to make 4 of these movies and that they would become a really pretty great money-making franchise for Lionsgate. So,
Robert, you already have the stars for your next film. You have the puppies. Go ahead and make your version of John Wick, Robert. Whatever it is.
You want me to kill a puppy?
I don't want you to kill. No, they don't want. No animals will be harmed in the making of the film.
Okay.
Robert.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you have young actors there right at your house. You could capitalize on this and create a franchise. You never know, Robert. But to be honest with you, Robert, the effort that was put in for the action scenes of John Wick, the actors' abilities, just when you look at that level of quality for a film that costs dramatically less, if you want action, if you're interested, even maybe they even had more cars in John Wick. For all I know, John Wick 4, I can't remember every single scene. But Robert, if you're looking for high quality, high action fighting, something that's sticking to it more of a true to its franchise, John Wick is the winner. However, it still has not necessarily, made as much as I think it should make. It's still a victory, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
it to have, made so much more. And, that's a little bit disappointing. But the effort that was put into John Wick, just even the scenes, Robert, my goodness gracious, all those fighting scenes are unbelievable. And it dwarfs a lot of other, like in Fast 10, it kind of dwarfs a lot of those fighting scenes. So I had to ask myself that other question about, yes, they want to top the previous film, but do they have to top it this way? They could have still done this perhaps without the outrageous and perhaps impossible stunts that we saw in the film. So that is very true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they need to bring back, because we can now do anything. I think what they need to do is bring back real stakes, because again, the whole point of car chase movies is we've all been in cars. So we know what it's like to drive fast in cars, especially if you're driving fast in cities or places like Rome, what that means. And if you've ever been to a city like Rome in Europe, people are crazy fucking drivers, or you're in Spain or something. So I get it. But even the mayhem that is being wrought, gets to the point where how many civilians die in this stuff happening like these, you're looking at this stuff and it just feels a little too callous,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love urban destruction. I do. Don't get me wrong. Fictional urban destruction. Let me clarify that. I show me cities being blown up like they're blown up in Akira or something. I enjoy that because of the stakes, but this just, I think what's really, we keep talking about like where we're at in terms of movies and AI, and I think one of the things that what's beginning to really bother me is movies are no longer grounded. All of these action movies are showing all of this sensory, all of these effects at you, but I don't feel them anymore. I'm looking at them and I'm very aware I'm watching special effects. I'm very aware it's ludicrous. And when you go back and you watch the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's the great truck chase where Indiana Jones has to get up onto the truck that has the Ark in it. And at first he's hanging behind the truck on his bullwhip, and then he gets underneath the truck, and then he gets onto the truck and back of the truck and through the truck and in the truck's cabin and throws the guy out and gets shot in the arm, and all this stuff is happening. That to me is an action sequence that has real adrenaline is pumping in my veins when I'm watching that. That seems almost quaint now compared to the mayhem that we're getting. I mean, that's one of the things I love about the Mission Impossible franchise is It remains grounded. With Tom Cruise doing his own stunts and all that, they're not relying on special effects to pump up. It's all that action is absolutely real. And sure, there's computer assistance when they need it, but you're not watching action that's heightened, that's too big. You believe what's going on, and that's why the Mission Impossible films, I think, they're the pinnacle of action movies. They out-Bond the Bond films, and they're more exciting, and the plots are more interesting than anything else. And I want to see that realism brought back to the cinema, because otherwise you're just watching a cacophony of noise signaling nothing. Sound and fury signaling nothing or meaning nothing.
Well, it's interesting because I think that's what Tom Cruise delivered in Top Gun Maverick was an incredible amount of authenticity, to a point where they were even flying planes and things of that nature, which was no small feat to do any of that technical stuff. It was incredibly dangerous, very technical, very involved. And he wanted it to be authentic, to a point where I think he had to ask the actors to sign waivers and all sorts of stuff in order to do this. But certainly in order to make it look real, he didn't want to CGI this stuff. He didn't want to have anything to do with that.
No, and even they did use, like, some of the planes, they were CG planes, but they were CG skins over real aircraft. So there was real aircraft flying, and then they would sometimes put CG exteriors on them, but they still moved like real planes because they were real planes.
Right.
And you could tell. I mean, it really worked out. And I think that's one of the things that Tom Cruise knows, is that verisimilitude, that reality is what makes people love movies. And I think when we don't have that, we're very aware of it. And I think the movies don't work as well as they could because you don't have that kind of realism that makes you believe, that gets your blood pumping.
Well, you're right, and I think that the ending, and I'm not really criticizing the writers of Fast 10 at all for this, because they have kind of focused more on the sensationalism of it all. But the ending of, let's say, a part of the film, was pure sensationalism. It was like the stuff of legends now. This is what the realm we're going into. It's a legendary status. It's not sort of like something that actually happened. It's almost like we're hearing a story from a relative who's exaggerating everything. And this is how it happened when we were, they were in this location and the person was going to do this and they were just standing there. And it's like, no, I don't think so. But we still have to believe it. The fish gets bigger and bigger every single time.
Yes. In both movies.
Yes. No pun intended.
So there you go. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, which is good stuff. I just think that fundamentally, I mean, I get it. I just wish that, I built another shelf and I've been alphabetizing my movie collection, and I just, when I see the trailer for Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm like, a movie I really want to see that has intellectual engagement and has it delves into history and it's got actors and it tells not a very nice story, but a story that's very relevant and matters, and an ugly period of American history, but made by a grand master. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that because I know it's going to be engrossing and I know I'm going to really like it. So I can't wait.
Well, it is kind of interesting. I mean, I think that when it comes to some of the film festivals that have been coming out earlier this year, Sundance had a lot of films that focused on films that were somewhat more sexual. And it was very exciting to see that sort of adult approach to films. Certainly got a lot of people's attention because for the most part, we've been starved. But, from what I've been seeing recently, I haven't been seeing anything that's as reinvigorating as, sort of like, I think it was Fair Play was that film that we were talking about. We still need a little bit more reinvigoration going forward. And, if we don't get that, it's going to feel very dry. We're just going to have like this desert of, sexless films where, no one has sex, it's implied, but no one ever has sex. And I just think that that's such an unrealistic way to push films forward with that notion, because it's just an unrealistic, it's just not real life. So hopefully.
Well, first of all, in these movies with all these beautiful people, where's the fucking?
Yes.
I mean, you think that there would be like some great sex scenes or something in these movies, but it's so weird that we're getting these relatively chaste with all these beautiful people with these beautiful bodies. Like, where's it? You get Charlize Theron fighting with Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I'm sorry.
It was so over the top.
Yeah,
I could think of a better use of the two of them. Yeah. I mean, I understand they have the fight scene and all that.
They could have had a love scene. That would have been even more interesting, honestly. But I'm not quite sure why they felt they had to do this. But like I said, they feel, I guess, a desire to keep topping. And, I'm not quite sure whether they topped anything. What I can say is that the cast.
No one got topped.
No one got topped. I can say the cast was mouth-wateringly delicious. That's about my real feeling about it. So I don't know. I think that the cinematography was great as well of the actors. This really was a showcase of these actors, and they wanted you to look at everybody, and they've had almost everybody who's in and popular right now. A lot of people who were that in the film, but it was weird seeing Charlize fight Michelle. There was no reason for that fight. She just would have left and escaped.
Plus, what happens in falling off and falling on things? They both would have had broken bones, and they would have been. None of them could have moved. And even fight scenes like that, I keep going back to one of my favorite. It's not recent anymore, but one of my favorite action movies in terms of fighting is The Raid, and the Gareth Evans movies, The Raiders. I like to call it The Rad because it's so rad. And then The Rad 2, even radder, or The Raid 2 Barandal. I mean, those are movies where I watch these fight scenes, these martial arts fight scenes, and I'm like, how the hell did they do that? You know, and somebody was going to get killed in that movie. So, and in this, it's and also exploitation films. I mean, the action and the sex is missing. You know, and it's so weird to watch what are supposed to be exploitation movies, and I mean, we live in such a weird where there's no eroticism yet. Girls are going to sugar baby sites and doing OnlyFans, and it's been totally commodified. It's so weird.
It's on the down low. We don't want anyone to know that we are sexual beings. That's what they're kind of pushing towards kids. However, children, you know, a lot of these kids are growing up seeing photos of people that are somewhat sexual poses. You know, like the way that their mouths are and the eyes and the looking. It's like it's an insinuation. It's not sort of like I'm with my family and I'm just smiling in a group photo. You know, it always is a photo that has to be provocative or is trying to, you know, like a thirst trap photo.
And on the flip side, everyone's talking about gender ideology, and they're talking about. I'm like, where's the fucking there? You know, everyone, people with all the talk about gender and people being trans or people being non-binary. I'm like, great. So are the non-binary people? Are they fucking everybody? Like, what's happening? And even all of that, the sexuality is not even a part of that anymore. You know, it's been removed. It's all about your identity. I'm like, where's the fucking? Where is the fucking? And it's like nobody's talking about that anymore. I mean, where the
you heard somebody say circle jerk even, like, does any of this stuff ever happen anymore? Like,
I don't think so. I mean, people would rather, you know, go online and talk about their gender identity. I'm like, okay, where is the fucking? Tell me about your non-binary fuck fest. That's what I want to hear about. Is everybody fucking everybody? Where are the orgies? Where, if you are non-binary, that means you have twice as much opportunity on a Friday night to get some fucking done. Let's get the fucking.
That's why I liked Titan so much, and that's why I think it won the Palme d'Or. It's because it just went to that extreme of where, you know, there was this frustration. You know, she was a very sexual woman, and she, you know, had these frustrations where she would do things that were somewhat bizarre and drastic, but it was still incredibly erotic. She had these frustrations dealing with the pressures of modern life and the responsibilities of modern life. And I thought that was very progressive and very forward, hoping to see more things like that. Even the ending was just like so unusual and bizarre. But Robert,
but even she needs to like get off fucking a car.
Yes.
like Cameron Diaz in The Counselor.
Yes.
I mean, it's which, by the way, is fantastic. Get the director's cut of The Counselor. If people, there's so many people that don't understand and don't like that movie. You're all wrong. Ridley Scott's The Counselor is a masterpiece. God damn it! The more I watch it, the more I love it. I mean, it's an evil movie, but it's still great.
Should there have been a sex scene in the Fast and Furious 10?
There should be a sex yes, because you know what? I'm watching. I feel like I'm watching a movie that's been made for like 12-year-old boys. and I'm like, and the thing is, when I was 12 years old, I couldn't wait for this. There were sex scenes. You'd watch exploitation, action, horror. Yeah. There was boobs. And it's almost like, well, that's patriarchal. That's the male gay. So we're not going to put any of it in there. Like you said, girls like to see hot dudes like Jason Momoa. You would have liked to have seen him thrusting vigorously and his ass going in the air.
Yes,
yeah, of course you would. You know, with a girl gripping those buttocks and slamming them into her.
Scraping the back with her nails. This would have been super hot. And it would have been great for him to like have had that aspect of it, because I think it would have elevated the film a little bit more, put a little bit more depth to the character, and opposed to him just kind of being, you know, so crazy. He obviously has other desires. I think when we don't see the other desires in a lot of these films, it kind of sterilizes the film a little bit, and it makes you so much more detached from this. But people are human and they have emotions, and we need to see that. We need to see lovemaking and all that sort of stuff. What a different film this would have been if, you know, we got to see some lovemaking, and of course, obviously, more than one lovemaking scene, please. How interesting would it have been if Charlize and Michelle didn't have that fight, but they had something else?
Yeah, well, bring that shit on. Yes. Yeah, but again, I mean, I think it's disingenuous. that, you know, when you have movies where people's lives are on the line, I mean, even someone like James Bond, you know, they've sort of it's become, oh, we have to get away from this weird trope, like, oh, what, you mean being human, you know, having desires, and there it's really bizarre, like it's we've been programmed, and it's affecting our culture. Our culture is, honestly, I think that there is an article or a book that can be written on how, on one hand, there's all this talk of gender and there's all this talk of identity and all that, but there's very little talk of sexuality and what does that mean? You know, at least maybe it's happening places I don't hear it. But
I guess we better write it, Robert. I guess I better write it because I'm always talking about sexuality and the lack of sexuality. And let's do it. Let's write a book about it. Let's do it.
But I almost think that our society it's that sex is being programmed out of everyday life. You either commodify it, you know, girls are turning it into a money-making institution. Not that that's necessarily wrong, but is anyone getting laid anymore? You know, maybe when that show The Idol starts, the new HBO show that The Weeknd produced with Lily Rose Depp, that we're going to see, because that's supposed to have a lot of masturbation and fucking in it, which is good because, you know, Euphoria, but it's all ugly. You know, even in Euphoria, I watch Euphoria, I'm like, yeesh,
Yeah,
I shouldn't be watching that show, man.
Yeah.
And even in like Succession, somebody wrote to me on Twitter and said, you know, Succession, where's the fucking on that show? About the richest people, like they can fuck anybody, you know, none of that.
You know, I know it was criticized when Black Swan came out, it was criticized for the sex scene, but I'm like, I long for something like this. You know, let's just go ahead and have fun and explore. Fatal Attraction, the TV series, came out in April. Robert, did you watch it? I mean, do you know anything about it? I mean, they went ahead and rebooted something that is very sexual. Like it's pretty much based on the sexual attraction of two people. And she won't. I believe
in that's actually Ellen Barkin in Sea of Love, but yeah, which is another great movie. But yeah, people. I tried watching it. I thought it was a little boring. I mean, it was the TV show. How was it? Did you watch it all?
No, I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't hear anything about the sex scene. So what I do is I wait till I see an article that says the sex scenes are out of this freaking world, and then I'm like, oh, I better watch that show. But I didn't hear anything about that. And I would imagine, first of all, I would imagine that there would be more nudity and more sex in this, where she's just like over the top. And he's like, I've got to be with this woman. And it should just be kind of be like where it's almost uncontrollable. And then, you know, they come up with some clever plot for this TV series. But imagine basing a whole TV series, Robert, off of what's supposed to be an affair, a sexual act. It should be the sexiest, raunchiest stuff we've ever seen. We should be seeing like stuff where we're like, oh my God, did you see what they did this week? I don't know. The last thing that I saw like that was a show called The Affair. And that was pretty good. I thought that one had nice scenes and sex scenes. In fact, I watched that series a lot, but I think it could have been something like that, but of course more over the top, you know, like where he's at close calls, where he's almost gotten killed and all sorts of crazy shit. Yeah. Let it be the extreme where both of them are pushing the limits to a point where, like, you know, something crazy has happened and they're like, we can't believe we did this, but we can't stay apart from one another. I think that would have been the crazy Fatal Attraction, and maybe not even call it Fatal Attraction, something else that's more feels more modern.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What do you think, Robert?
Well, I mean, you know, they talk about they're going to make erotic thrillers, and they had the Adrian Lyne, who directed Jacob's Ladder, finally came back, who directed Fatal Attraction, did that Ben Affleck Ana de Armas movie that was based on the Patricia Highsmith novel, where she was playing all these hijinks and stuff, and it was nice to see that come back. But I think that we need that kind of thing. I just don't know if it's recognizable anymore. You know, this whole idea of how any kind of masculinity is being poo-pooed, you know, and we're not supposed to be that way. We're not. It's like that kind of drive is what builds civilization. You know, the Trojan War fought over a hot blonde, Diane Kruger. You know, it's like that's why we're fighting this war. Or the beginning of Excalibur. You know, Uther Pendragon wants to go, like, okay, we're going to make peace. Oh, then I've seen your wife. I must have her.
Yeah,
And
and we're
Merlin's like, really, you shouldn't do this. You're going to start. We just made peace. It doesn't matter. I have to have her right now. To the point where he makes Merlin conjure up the dragon's breath so he can ride his horse, transform himself into Igraine's husband, and he has his way with her while he's wearing a suit of armor. That's how much he couldn't even take his armor off before he had her.
That's right. And as my mother told my brother in the movie theater, Michael, knights don't have sex with their armor on. But I beg to differ. I have a feeling that they just had to do whatever they yes.
They can't do their best work. You can't get close enough. Come on.
Well, you know something? I have no idea, but I just thought that was really something. My brother never forgot that. And apparently if he ever has his armor on, I guess maybe he has to make the decision to take it off. Of course, we saw a little bit of that in the HBO Max series the other day. I can't remember the name of it. The Dragon, House of the Dragon.
Oh yeah.
Where the guy has to take off his armor. They make a point of actually showing. He said he needed to show the armor being taken off, and the armor, it had to be a ritual. It had to take time. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it would take time to do that. But like the anxiety and the sexual tension builds up during that time, which is nice. But, you know, it is very interesting that you're talking about how those encounters are what's driving the story big time. You know, it is a little insane. I mean, I really am worried, Robert, that we're just going to have a whole generation that hasn't been exposed to what we know as normal attraction. I mean,
they're already not. I mean, our civilization is so weird right now. I find it unrecognizable. You know, I mean,
I sent you that mixtape today or the other day, whatever, because I just wanted to go back. It was a mixtape from 1985. It's not a hard copy. It's a YouTube video.
Yeah.
A recording from WPLJ. I'm sure a lot of people from New York know that station, if it's still around. And it was just almost soothing to listen to the hits from the 80s. But then I thought about how the songs were so inspiring. You know, a lot of them were, upbeat and fun. And, there was a lot of this kind of feeling that as a young person, your life was going to be exciting and there was a lot to be excited for. And I'm fear that a lot of the young people now don't have that level of excitement. There's a lot they have to worry about that's on their shoulders unnecessarily. When I was that age, I didn't care about any of that stuff.
No, everyone's an activist now. Everyone receives their affirmations by being on the right side of whatever issue they. I'm like, hey man, you know what? Go out and go have some fun. Fuck all the activism.
They turned entertainment into that.
Yeah, it's just it's so weird. Like I'm like, and I think that's really is anyone having a really great time? Can you go out and you don't have to hurt people? Everybody, it was consensual.
Yeah, it
was all consent. Everybody was at a party. Everybody wanted the same thing. Now it's like every man's a date rapist and every woman is imperiled.
Most men are respectful. I just have to put that out there. And they would always look out for you. And it wasn't uncommon if you were at a party and like, oh, you have a right. You know how you're getting home or whatever. There was always somebody looking out for you. So it's a very type of environment that we have now. I don't even know what people think nowadays when they see people, going from place to place. But going out to these events, going out to parties, like I started to go back to EDM events and it does feel really good. I mean, I would rather go to a beautiful club, but we have these sort of warehouses out here. I'm not feeling the warehouse thing right now. Like I'm not enthused. However, I do like the interaction and seeing people around me. But I wonder what percentage of the population is even doing stuff like this. Like, I don't think people are going out and enjoying themselves. And it's unfortunate. I don't look at my phone when I'm out. I just enjoy myself and turn it off. I don't know. They had that report, Robert, recently about children. You brought it up, how it's affected them mentally and how all this stuff is happening. But it is really concerning.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know, like, especially younger people. I don't know this for a fact, but do they even know how to party? Like, I mean, do they know how to party? Because when you think about it, it's a skill. You have to know. You have to be, and to know how to party is to not have a phone.
Yes.
You don't have a phone. If you go out at night and you take out your phone out of your pocket, for the only reason you should take out your phone is if you're meeting somebody and you need to coordinate where you're meeting or somebody wants to know where you are, then you should, if you pull out your phone at night, you failed.
Yes.
Your evening is over. You failed. You're not having fun. You're
also, if you're not making eye contact with people, you've also failed.
You know, it's funny. I obviously my clubbing days, I'm old now, but when I was at a Schmodown event in Houston, and I wasn't supposed to be, nobody could see me, so I couldn't go out to the Schmodown events the night that I was going. And I was staying, I don't remember where, I was staying right across the street from the Space Center in Houston. And I was like, where do I go? And I went down to the waterfront. I mean, and anyone from Houston could tell you where this is. So I go down the waterfront. There was like a pier there, and there was a big club.
Yes.
You know, this big club. And I went into this big club, and it was really interesting because no one paid any attention to me, which was interesting. So I just kind of got a drink and got a good vantage point and just watched. And everybody in this club, and they're all in their early 20s, college kids, whatever, everyone's phone was out.
Oh my God.
In the club. I'm like everyone, and I'm like, I was like admiring, I mean, dirty old man that I am. I'm looking at all these hot chicks and very little, you know, short shorts and all this. I'm like, and it was there. Guys weren't even looking at him. And I was thinking to myself, wow. And no one was looking at me, looking at these girls, because they're all looking at their phones. So no one's like, who's the creepy white-haired dude in the corner?
No.
No. They weren't. They didn't say that because no one saw me, because they were looking in their phones. And it was such a weird vibe to go. I hadn't been in a club where people were dancing in so long. And I'm like, no one, like when we're in clubs, you're looking at the people.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the girls, you look at the guys, you look at everybody. You're in a club. And there were people with their phones out. I'm like, you've paid to get into this club, and your phone's out. You've failed. You're failing at life, kid. You're failing. I want to stop them all and shake them and say, put your goddamn phone away. You are missing your life. You never know where you know, if you put your phone in your pocket, you might never know where you're going to wind up tonight.
Well, Robert, there's 2 series that are coming out. One of them is Outlander. I think it's season 7 or 8. And it is a show that was very sexual when it first started.
Yep.
In fact, there's a scene where one of the characters is in a prison, and another character unfortunately sexually assaults them. And it's a scene between 2 men. And, you know, the Diana Gabaldon, who's the author of the series, chose to make sure that was in the story. And there's a lot of other sexual things that go on in the story as well. But this final season, I don't know how sexual it's going to be. They've kind of toned it down a little bit, and that has changed. But I was kind of looking forward to a more sexual vibe in it, you know, going forward. You know, I don't even know. And I'm kind of questioning how many of these actors really even want to do a lot of these sex scenes, because there was a report that came out about this actor where he had said, you know, the guy from Outlander said that they made him film more scenes nude, and those were not included in the story. And supposedly these scenes were destroyed and no one saw them. But, you know, we hear these things happening time and time again. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I get it. You know, you don't want to do nude scenes, but there has to be some actors out there who want to do nude scenes. Because I just don't believe that the consensus is nobody ever wants to do a nude scene. You know, I don't know whether I believe that. So,
well, 10 years ago, I directed some sex scenes in a Skinamax show called Femme Fatales, and the first episode of the second season, I directed the season opener, and it was called the name of the episode. It was like it's set in a Big Brother house, and my actors couldn't get their clothes off fast enough. They were all beautiful, and it was a very horny set, very horny. It was the only time that HBO asked me to tone down, because I edited my own episodes.
Yes.
And there was a sex scene. They said you have to tone this down, and I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you have to tone it down.
Well,
okay.
They asked you. They said that every 8 seconds there has to be a breast.
Yeah.
And every 5 seconds there has to be an ass, and every 5 seconds somebody has to kiss somebody else.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And this was it was extreme, because they were they went for it, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the girl in this scene, she was beautiful and she was a dancer, so the way she was moving, she was exquisite.
Wow.
And yeah, that was a fun show to work on, but
But
rough.
let's say and there is a place for eroticism and for erotic productions, and I accept that and I'm glad for them. But let's say for the other, let's say, section of adult films that maybe are not necessarily entirely erotic films, nudity, Robert, are actors, do you think, not wanting to do nudity anymore? I mean, I don't know what's in an actor's mindset, but for a movie or a show that is very sexual, and they may have to do nudity, and I wonder, we used to see this stuff all the time. Is there pushback about nudity? Is that what it is? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think no, I think that nowadays people are very hyper aware. You know, there's been so many terrible things that have come out about what's gone on in Hollywood that there's a level of chastity that's taken over, that nobody wants to see, that sex scenes are considered exploitive, and I think that people have shied away from them in general. You know, but I also think that's because the movies we're getting are infantilized. I mean, Fast X, that's not a movie for adults. You know, it's a movie it's a party movie.
There could have been one scene with Jason Momoa with no shirt on and getting wet or something. Like, there could have been a lot of.
No, there could have been, but I mean, it was, and all the movies that the studios are making, there is not a lot of, like, I think back to movies like Body Heat, you know, that Lawrence Kasdan made. The first film, the guy wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he wrote Empire Strikes Back, and then he directed Body Heat, which is, you know, about a woman that seduces a guy and gets the guy to do murder for her, you know. And that's I remember Kathleen Turner has that great line. What is she says? You're not too intelligent. I like that in a man, or something like that. And it's just, you know,
It's
I miss.
William Rader.
Look, you go back and you watch. I love 9.5 Weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where's the 9.5 Weeks of today? Mickey
Oh,
Rourke and Kim Basinger. Come on.
yeah, it's yeah. I don't know, Robert, but something really does need to change. I think if Sundance can focus on films with sexuality and sex, then it means that they're being made, but they're either not being bought or produced or whatever it is. I'm not quite sure what the story is. At Cannes this year, are we seeing films of a sexual nature, or are we seeing stuff that's not necessarily focusing on sexual subjects, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that the people are shying away from those, just because I think that there's a thought that maybe that's not what's selling anymore. But it's really interesting. Like, I would love to see, like, when is someone going to make the great, like, talking about non-gender conforming or non-binary, when's someone going to make the great non-binary love triangle romance or erotic film where it's a love triangle between, you know, 3 non-binary people, you know, and they're all intertwined with one another or whatever. I mean, and I don't hear anything about that. Everyone's talking about their identity, and you see activists talk, but where is the fucking? If you're, and it's so weird. Like, and it seems to me like whenever I see activists, it's like, where's all the beautiful activists? Where's all the non-gender conforming? Where's that sort of 80s, you know, the androgynous, you know, it's funny because the only person I think of as being sort of androgynous and beautiful is Jeffree Star. You know, this makeup and everything. I'm like, in the 80s, he would have been like this total androgynous hero character, you know, something. But we don't. Where are those people? You know.
For some reason, I was thinking of The Crying Game. There wasn't actually any. I don't think there was a sex scene in that one. But yeah, it's something to think about. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with all of it. It is concerning, and there should have been, like, movie celebrating her non-binariness or their they them's non-binariness, and it could have been like some kind of, honestly, like a foreign film where they're on a road trip and it's like some exploration and discovery happens as they blossom and become this new I don't know, experience. Threesome, which is a film that I'm kind of fond of.
I love that Stephen Baldwin and Josh, what's his face? Lara Flynn Boyle. That, first of all, that movie is awesome, and it's also hilarious.
Yes.
And the moment when Stephen Baldwin takes the football, and he's like, "Didn't you just want to just fucker?" I mean, he's so funny in that movie. That movie is a great.
And it's fine. Like we know that all three of them are actually this way, and it became somewhat of an intimate thing. And as I said before, they didn't necessarily focus on what the attraction was. Like it just so happened that one of the characters, identified as being gay, and a male character identified as being straight. And she, I guess, I don't know what her sexual orientation was. I don't know whether she discussed it, but it didn't matter because they were going to hook up. It did not matter what their orientation was. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was good. And it built up to this. It didn't kind of like just throw you into it. Some very real situations. And you've been on campuses as a kid in college and seeing couples kind of like, like you couldn't get a crowbar between those two, doing whatever.
I went to the Evergreen State College in Washington State. And let me just tell you, I saw just about everything you could see at that college. It was out of control.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, if people knew, if I tried to explain, people wouldn't believe me. But that's what I find so interesting is there's all of this talk about gender, but not very much talk about sexuality. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's
nudity.
Yeah, or it's really weird. Like I don't, and maybe I'm just missing that part of the discussion. But I feel like people are more interested in talking about gender nonconformity as a way to run away from sexuality. In a way.
Why are they scared of it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about it. It's just that I see a lot of talk, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of ink being spilled on all this stuff. But where's all the talk about non-gender conforming sexual roles? And where is it? I mean, maybe it's out there. Please point me in that direction.
Or modern conforming sexual roles.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see I would have thought that's the thing with whether people are non-binary or they're on a gender spectrum. I hear a lot about that. But so to me, that's like, ooh, what does that mean for your sexuality? That's what I'm a pervert. I want to hear all about it. Let me watch. Let me see it. And no, we don't have that much. And there's a book that everyone's complaining about because it's lavishly illustrated by the author. Mm-hmm. And it's a book that they want out of the libraries. I think it's called Gender Queer, but it's very sexually explicit and talks about the sexual awakening of the author. And it doesn't pull any punches, and people are all upset about it because it delves into sexuality, which every human being delves into in their entire lives.
Absolutely.
And it's like every single human being, from the time you're a little kid, you're figuring out what feels good to your body. And now we want to pretend that, no, you don't. And it's weird. I don't get it.
It is weird, but it's something to think about.
It is something to think about. But now back to the movies.
Yes.
Back to Fast. There's a reason why Fast X is called Fast X without any X material in it. It's false advertising. By the way, our friend Julian Mushkin says, regarding erotic entertainment, I recommend you must remember this podcast from, Karina Longworth, currently on a season about erotic movies from the 80s and 90s. Okay, this is true. You must remember this. I've listened to this. So this is Karina Longworth is married to, why am I drawing a blank on who she's married to? She's married to a film director. Let me find out. I'm going to use this newfangled contraption called the internet. Karina Longworth spouse.
Okay.
Karina Longworth is married to Ryan Johnson.
Okay.
She's married to Ryan, Last Jedi, Ryan Johnson. So Karina Longworth has been for the second season of her podcast, has been delving into erotic movies of the 80s. Here's my problem with what I've heard of her podcast, and I haven't listened to very much of it. She's very much approaching it with presentism, of looking back at it from today's perspective.
It needs to be corrected and what's wrong.
Yes, yes. There is an element of all of these movies where, like, I think that there's a problem now. I think all of the conversation that's going on around all these issues now, it's the conversations that are going on now that are wrong. It's the conversations that are they don't admit to human nature. They're not delving into who we really are. Like nowadays, I feel like people would rather live in a world where none of this kind of thing happened. That there is no sexuality. There is none. We now have to respect everybody's pronouns and all this. Like, what does that have to do with anything? You need to respect who I am. I was misgendered today. Is that really what's important? I want to know who you were fucking yesterday. I mean, why? People are getting mad about being misgendered. I'm like, I'm mad that you're not fucking. Who are you fucking? And why are you mad about pronouns? I mean, I would think that if you're non-binary, you have a smorgasbord of the world right in front of you. You have more choices than I have. It should be fantastic. I want to hear all about it. Where's the erotic thrillers? Where's the fucking? Show me.
I mean, I was focusing on sexuality in adult films, and I had said, with the advent of shifting values in the late 2010s, we are seeing a shift away from sex and sexuality commonly used tropes. So I need to establish what are the most common used sex tropes in cinema in 2000, in 2010, and in 2020. Yeah, 2020, just to kind of like get a benchmark of what they are, because I don't even know what they are. I don't know. I haven't really been able to establish or definitively say that we have a certain percentage of films that are completely devoid of sex. I haven't explored foreign cinema. I don't know whether foreign cinema is also going through this issue. But, honestly, I was surprised that any cinema overseas would be affected by the nonsense that's going on here in the US. But, these tropes are very important because they're based upon human behavior. Psychological observations that have been made for the last, 100 years, Robert, by psychologists who are trying to understand human behavior and sexuality. So the idea of ignoring it now, all of a sudden it's not important. All of a sudden it's not supposed to be something reflected in what we see in everyday life. It's like you're ignoring a certain part of life. You're ignoring a certain part of human interaction. And that's something that we used to focus on a lot. It used to be a big deal. Like there were famous psychologists, all they talked about was sex and sexual behavior. So now all of a sudden that's not anything we want to talk about or address or have on the cinema, or even, like coming of age films, Robert. Coming of age films that are beautiful. Like what's that one? Call Me by Your Name.
Oh yeah.
That was a beautiful coming of age film. It's a film about two men, and it was a beautiful film. That was incredible. I mean,
well, yeah, and I find that it's a weird, like we're in a weird place, and you hear, like, there's been a lot of talk when filmmakers like Martin Scorsese are talking about how superhero movies, I mean, we talk about it all the time. When a filmmaker complains that there's too many superhero movies or superhero movies aren't cinema, and everybody gets protective of, well, yes, they are cinema. But that's not what the filmmakers are talking about. What the filmmakers are talking about are, like, for instance, I always talk about these movies. I always talk about Michelangelo Antonioni's Ennui trilogy. Like, if you watch Italian neorealism, or watch like the movies that were being made in the 60s, La Notte, La Ventura, and The Eclipse. You watch those movies, people today would watch those movies and be like, what the fuck is this? They would be bored to tears. They're like, what is happening in this movie?
Why are they all going into the shed and taking their clothes off? What's happening?
But these are more weird existential, like Last Year at Marienbad. And these are movies that I grew up watching, and I watch them now, and I feel like I'm watching them, that they're artifacts from an alien planet or a human civilization that's been long lost. And I own them all. Like, I have them all right here, and I put them on, and I'm looking at them and I'm watching them, and it's like these are so beyond the realm of, and I think that most people aren't even, you can't even watch them because you would have to be trained to not run out of the room bored out of your mind. And it's such a strange thing because I was watching these movies when I was like 12 because I'd read about them in film books, so I had context. Like last year, Mermaid is sort of a very dreamy, surreal movie that I really, really love, that I recently saw, a couple of years back, I don't know, 2015, I was able to see it in a theater for the first time. And I took a friend of mine, and she'd never seen it. And, you know, she was like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. And I'm like, well, that's because they used to make movies like this all the time. But now nobody would ever, not only would people not go, you could never get a movie like that made. And yet you delve into what the Francois Truffaut movies, stuff like, you know, whether it's Godard doing Breathless or Jules Truffaut doing things like the Antoine Donnell 400 Blows, or you look at Fellini's movies. I mean, these are famous films that, you know, the intelligentsia or people were watching. I mean, the way they would go to art museums in the 50s and 60s, you'd go see La Strada, or you would go see La Dolce Vita, or you would go see Jules and Jim, or you'd go see, and no one knows these movies, and it's such a weird place to be at now. And I think that's what a lot of filmmakers are like, you know, where are the movies about our lives? You know, films used to be reflections of life, and now, especially a lot of American movies, studio movies aren't that way at all. It's all confections. It's all, I mean, I love Top Gun Maverick as much as the next guy. It's an amusement park ride, like Mission Impossible or something like that. But, you know, where's the movies like Broadcast News?
Yeah.
You know, or something like that. Or I heard Mary Tyler Moore, Terry Gross was there replaying an interview with Mary Tyler Moore tonight when I was coming back from getting this keyboard, and they were interviewing Mary Tyler Moore. You know, and she was talking about her career and doing a movie like Ordinary People. Like when Ordinary People came out, everyone saw it, and people talked about it, and it was being written about in magazines, and this portrayal of this family, or Kramer versus Kramer. You know, I mean, these movies, no. And these were huge movies when I was growing up. One of my favorite movies of all time is still All That Jazz, which is
I love that.
Bob Fosse's Ramona Clef. Bob Fosse was a guy who liked to fuck. Unapologetically. I mean, he cheated on his wife. Anne Reinking and Sandal Bergman, who later went on to play Conan's woman in Conan the Barbarian. And, you know, when they do the erotica sequence.
The red-haired dancer, what's her name?
Leland Palmer, that plays his wife. I mean, and they were like involved in real life. I mean, All That Jazz is still in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And it's the movie that made me want to become a film editor, watching that movie. And I think David Fincher said it's one of his favorite films. Nobody knows that movie today. You know, I'm like, this is one of the movies I've seen the most in my life, is All That Jazz. And it
explores a lot of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
That people aren't unaware of, not just of him, but of the dancers that are around him.
Yeah. And movie making too. Cause he's in real life, Bob Fosse was making a movie called Lenny, you know, about Lenny Bruce. Mm-hmm. And he was directing Broadway plays, and in that movie he's editing a movie about a comedian, and he's putting on a new Broadway play. And at the same time, it deals with what is it to be a creative spirit. And I'm like, where are these movies? And the movies that I watch over and over again, like I used to, are still the movies I watched over and over again when I was watching All That Jazz when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. Over and over again. I did not watch, you know, I don't go back and watch Marvel movies over and over and over again, except maybe, I mean, a few of them I do. Like I'll watch Endgame and Infinity War till the cows come home. But I go back and watch these films, you know, or even later movies like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, that I really love. And I just ordered the director of that film's a new movie that I haven't seen. Criterion was having a sale today. I'm like, oh, Click. Send me that movie.
But
But
that movie, All That Jazz, another thing I liked about the film was that it showed him, he was doing a lot, but even he was having trouble keeping control of it a little bit. I think that he, was incredibly, you have somebody who's incredibly talented. Not only is he an incredibly talented dancer and choreographer, but he can also kind of do these other things like make movies and
yeah,
run shows and like, and then on top of that, he's demanding so much of himself. So it's almost as if he sees these beautiful women and he loves all of them and he's not going to say no to any of them. So then
right.
then it increases the demand on what he has to do. So now he's overburdened, overloaded, and he's looking in the mirror at himself, realizing I can't possibly keep up this pace. And so then when they have that music that kind of speeds up and it feels like it's, he's kind of, things are going very, very fast and it's passing, his life is passing him by. It is, because I don't know whether he even mentally could wrap his head around what he was doing, which was remarkable. It was remarkable. He was,
Well, yeah. No, and the thing is, he didn't enjoy it. He was pushing and pushing and pushing. And also, like, creative people, somebody who's involved in the arts like that, a man even though he was a choreographer and everything, who's a very masculine guy, and you're around women dancers they are supreme examples of the perfection of the human body.
yeah,
How great dancers have turned their bodies into the ultimate artistic expression, and he loved women. He just and women, to be next to them, to make love with a woman, to have that, he loved it, and it fueled his creative passion. And a lot of people now don't. I mean, they poo-poo that kind of thing, and it's like, no. When you're with, to have that kind of thing, to have that creative energy when you're with somebody, you're making love to somebody, or making love, I should say, with somebody, and you're both into it. It's a creative exercise.
it is. Maybe she's his muse, maybe he's her muse, things
Yeah,
like
and
that.
it's a creative. And when you're sharing your bodies and stuff, half of it's your imagination anyway, because it's pretty silly when you think about it. But when you're in it, when you stand back and watch, it's kind of goofy. But when you're in it, and if you can pleasure somebody through your technical prowess and skill, there's nothing better. And when they're able to do the same to you, that kind of sex is incredible sex that can last all night long. And when you can have that, and a lot of people that are in the creative fields do that. Now, one of the problems with something like movie making is a lot of people get into it because they want the perks. And there are people that are predators, and they want to satisfy their own desires, and they're not interested. They have no interest in the other person. They just want to satiate whatever horrible desires they have because they grew up not getting what they wanted. But if you're a truly creative person and you're in, that's why I love that movie so much. I love All That Jazz. Now, he pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, but I love the character of Joe Gideon. The movie's like a Romana Clef on Bob Fosse's life. Joe Gideon is Bob Fosse.
Yes.
And I'm such a huge fan of Cabaret, and he, he made Star 80 about Dorothy Stratton, and it's just, but All That Jazz, to me, it's about the creative process. It's about making movies. And then it's about the life that a truly creative person lives, where those appetites about life in general are there. He was a man that loved women, loved everything about women, and he would make love to a woman every night if he could. And he did, which is the problem.
Probably did.
He got into trouble.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's how he lived his life. I certainly don't have a problem with how he did that, but I think the rawness of the film also is very appealing.
Yeah, and plus it's got great musical dance numbers, and it's also just it's great. And it's actually, it has Alan Hyme, who edited the movie, is in the movie playing an editor. Which is so.
There are all those scenes where the dancers are dancing in front of the mirrors, which they normally do anyway, to see their moves, and it's kind of like, and they're talking and they're saying, why, what is it, what's going on, kind of like it's almost like you're part of the company, and you're listening to what's going on, the hot news at that moment. So it's somewhat immersive as well, but I like the film too. It's very interesting, these dance styles, and even that, like, looking at we had this musical. The Little Mermaid is a musical that's popular right now. And, as I said, any movie that has singing in it that is making money is a big deal, because musicals don't necessarily make a lot of money. So, it's a victory for it. And I wonder, are more on the way? Are we going to see more things like this, even edgier ones? I don't remember the last edgy one I've seen, Robert.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot. I mean, I think In the Heights had a lot of like I thought In the Heights and Tick Tick Boom were both quite, Lin-Manuel Miranda and stuff. While there's something. I mean, I think about like there's I think he's Spanish, a Spanish director. He might be Argentinian or something. There's a director named Carlos Sora, and he did a lot of dance films. Like I remember seeing a film he made called Carmen. I want to say it's like 85 or something. And that movie, it had tango in it. It just exuded eroticism, and there's, or, I think about Zalman King, Wild Orchid with Mickey Rourke, and going in, what's her face? I forget the girl's name that was in it that he later married. What's that? Do you remember?
Wasn't it Bonet?
No.
I'm sorry.
In Wild Orchid, her name is on the tip of my tongue. Hey, wait, I can check the internet.
Cariotis?
Cariotis, that's who it was. Cariotis.
I didn't know it.
Yeah, Cariotis. I mean that movie. I mean, like 4.5 out of 10 on IMDb. You had to be there. It was great. By the way, we have a lot of people been firing in super chats, as you might expect.
Super chats. It's been 2 hours now. I didn't realize time was flying by, Robert.
Coach sipping Jamba Juice out of a straw says Midnight Musings makes it good to be in on a Friday night. Hasn't been this good since TGI Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Ended in 2000. Take a bow, Rob. You have replaced Urkel, because that was part of the Friday night lineup. Well, Coach sipping Jamba Juice out of a straw. I'm glad. Do you still feel that way now that we're 2 hours in this conversation? But and you sent that in at 9:40. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Tom Jr. Jackson says, "How dare you not give credit to John Candy and Splash, throwing coins on the ground to look up dresses, classic, and don't forget Eugene Levy." Well, I won't. But I'm thinking more about Daryl Hannah's ass. But you're right. That's very true. That's very true. Checkers the Inventor, our friend Checkers the Inventor. How are you, sir? Disney should have adapted the original story. They would have certainly blown minds and left audiences dumbfounded. Yes, the original story of The Little Mermaid is quite different. Not at all like you remember. I don't think Disney could have adapted the original story, though. But yeah, I mean, a lot of Disney animated films, and they're very much downplayed. They've kidified them from their actual roots. Right. And I think when you go back and you look into some of those stories, you'll be surprised, going, "Oh my God, they certainly changed that." Bert makes a good point. Yesterday was Star Wars' 46th anniversary and Return of the Jedi's 40th anniversary, and today is the first anniversary of the release of Kenobi on Disney Plus. Any quick thoughts? Well, I've always thought of May 25th as Star Wars Day. Again, part of the modern age. Someone said, "May the 4th be with you," and suddenly we're celebrating Star Wars Day on that day. May 25th is Star Wars Day. That's when Star Wars debuted in 1977. In my mind, it was always Star Wars Day. There was no May the 4th be with you 20 years ago. That's a relatively recent thing. I understand, and Revenge of the 5th, whatever. I mean, that's fine, but it's May 25th, which is cool. I mean, it's amazing that Star Wars itself is 46 years old. Look, Kenobi, I just wish that Star Wars was better than it is. Modern Star Wars. To me, Star Wars and Empire are two of the great triumphs of fantasy cinema. But in terms of, to me, there's Star Wars and Empire, and then there's everything else. Yes, including Return of the Jedi. To me, it's Star Wars and Empire. To be honest, those are really the only Star Wars movies I watch. I really don't have much interest watching anything other than Star Wars and Empire, because they're all lesser. Even Jedi. I mean, I'll watch if I put on Jedi, I will watch the end. I kind of like the swashbuckling rescue of Han Solo, but I like the music, especially bump, bump, and then that music that John Williams plays as everyone's looking around going, when is all hell gonna break loose, and when is Luke gonna ignite his lightsaber? And then I like the battle, and I like the throne room sequence. But to me, Star Wars and Empire are it, and everything else is so below. It's fine, you know. I mean, I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life, well, since I was 10, and it's been one long downhill slog where nothing ever reached the heights of Star Wars or Empire. And it's funny to say that now because there's a lot of people going, "Oh, those movies are so boring now." Well, that's because you weren't there when they were brand new and they changed the world.
Yeah.
So it's hard, and that's not a criticism, by the way. It's just that when you've been born into a world where, you know, 30 years ago, Jurassic Park came out. So we've had photorealistic dinosaurs for 30 years. So in the last 30 years, if you're 40 years old and you got Jurassic Park when you were 10, you never really knew a world where you got stop motion animation dinosaurs like Valley of the Gwangi. You didn't know what that was. So you never saw the transition. So there is no understanding of what the world was like before you got these things. And I'm not saying that like old man shouting at clouds, but when you have everything there, you know, when it's already there, you have no idea where it used to be. And it's funny because I hear people going back and watching Star Wars and they talk about it's boring because they're not given, and those people try and watch those Antonioni movies I was talking about, or Godard's Breathless.
Where are they going in the barn?
Oh man, it's brutal.
This barn sequence is such a waste of time in the film. And why do they go in there and take all their clothes off? This is totally pointless. I could hear them like rationalizing why the nudity and sex doesn't need to be in the film, and how it you know, actually creates distraction and detracts from the film. It's like, no, the sex and nudity is supposed to be in there for a reason. And the barn is significant for another reason, because there was a sheep in there and something happened, and, you know, like all sorts of symbolism with it. But, you know, getting back to the Star Wars thing, and it's interesting that they were asking that question about Star Wars, because I was speaking to Catherine about, you know, the idea of recognizable things in Star Wars, things that are recognizable, that if you see it, you're like, that's Star Wars. And I'd mentioned to her how we had seen the burlesque show, you know, The Empire Strips Back.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see the advertisement for it, even if you don't know exactly what the advertisement is for, you're like, oh, that looks like Star Wars.
Yes.
You know, like the immediate response is, that's Star Wars.
Yep.
Nothing in your mind could divert you from that and say, well, that can't possibly be Star Wars. No. This is 100% Star Wars. And I think it's very interesting, the nuances that must be in place for it to feel like a recognizable IP. And, you know, I think sometimes, you know, I think that there has to be some care taken when you move too far away from it to a point where you're like, well, it kind of looks like it, but it's not exactly. And then it's like, that's when you kind of get into this territory of, well, what exactly are you watching? Is it just science fiction, or is it Star Wars? So for a lot of people, these different series that have come out, let's say since that time, represent different things. Some people, they don't feel like Andor is Star Wars. Some people feel like, you know, the Ben Kenobi series wasn't quite Star Wars for them. It is very interesting to see the opinions about how specific things in there really resonate to people, and really give them that sense of authenticity, while other things don't, Robert.
You know what? This is gonna seem weird to say, but when I think about Star Wars is about ordinary people. Like the people in Star Wars are kind of like, and what I mean by that is like when we meet Luke, he's a farm boy, you know. And when I say he's a farm boy, he's like I was gonna go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters, and you know, you can waste your time and your friends later. You have work to do, and then when Aunt Beru says most of his friends have gone, they're talking like people would talk in the Midwest, or people that are living in a rural farm community.
Yeah.
So even Ben Kenobi is like, I don't seem to remember owning a droid. You know, they're talking like, even though he's talking about a droid, he's talking like somebody you can relate to. And in all of Star Wars, all the people we meet, like when Leia says she's on the Death Star, she's been tortured. Luke walks in and she looks at me and she's, aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? Like she's somebody would say that to you, like now here on Earth. And he's like, oh, the uniform. And I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. The people are talking like they're normal people, not like they're in a science fiction movie. They're just regular people. And I feel that that's what, and when they went places, like before they added the special edition shit that they ruined Star Wars with, when you went to Mos Eisley, it was a shithole. You know, there were no Jawas and Rontos running around. There's not droids going beep, 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 going through the air. You know, there were stormtroopers, but it was a dusty, horrible place. You know, and when Luke walks into Mos Eisley, they even changed some of the cantina creatures because they didn't have enough money to do what George Lucas wanted. So you get a few shots of CG creatures. And when you see CG creatures in Star Wars, it ruins. So for 20 years, Star Wars was peak verisimilitude. It had no CG effects. And so when I look at Star Wars now, I can't watch the special edition because as soon as I see a CG shot, there's even a pan down they added of R2-D2 at dusk, and the camera pans down from a star field and finds him in the jungle and wastes, you know, coming down. Even that shot, I'm like, I can't. It looks fake to me because Star Wars didn't have any of that, which is why it worked. And for 20 years of my life, I watched Star Wars. It was unmolested with CG. And now when I look at Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars, I'm like, what is this? This is terrible. It looks terrible. And why is Boba Fett suddenly working for Jabba the Hutt all the time? He's a bounty hunter. When he gets hired, when you first meet him, first of all, people, the first time you see Boba Fett is in Empire Strikes Back. It's not in Star Wars. It's so stupid. When they added Boba Fett to Star Wars, I'm like, Boba Fett is not part of Jabba the Hutt's court. He's a guy that Jabba the Hutt might hire occasionally. But when you see the lineup, when you see Forlom and Zuckuss and Dengar and IG-88 and Boba Fett in that lineup, and the Imperial officers like bounty hunters, we don't need their scum, you know. And it's and you meet Boba Fett. He's like he's a workaday guy too. He's just the smartest of the assholes that showed up on on Vader's on the Executor. And I can't. You know, after that, it just got sillier. Star Wars got sillier and sillier and sillier, and nobody talked like real people anymore. Everybody talks like, when you see the Jedi Council in the prequels, no one speaks like they're normal people. And that's the problem. Like Star Wars, the original Star Wars is just a bunch of dudes and Princess Leia. Princess Leia wasn't like, I am royalty. You know, she was a person. She was like you know, the Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies. I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, she's in Vader's face.
Yeah,
she's like, I don't know. She's lying to Darth Vader. She doesn't give a fuck. I mean, she's like, I mean, and you know, you're looking at her, and it's like you're looking at her. You know, you're a part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away. And she's still lying her ass off to Vader. Yeah. And then on the Death Star, she's like, oh, Dantooine. They're on Dantooine. No, that's far too remote to make it. Don't worry. We're going to... Even Tarkin. You don't know how hard I found it signing the order to terminate your life. I'm surprised you had the courage to do so yourself. I mean, they're fucking in each other's faces. And it's great. And you believe it. That's why Star Wars is so good. You know, and people are like, oh, the acting is bad. No, it wasn't. You know, it wasn't. When you first saw it, you'd sit there and go, I mean, maybe adults did, but it worked. And, you know, I believed everything. It's like at the end when the rebels are attacking, you know, we've analyzed their attacks, sir, and there is a danger. Should I have your ship standing by? And Tarkin's like, evacuate? In our moment of triumph, I think you overestimate their chances. You know, and it's great. Like all the people, you're like, he's a stuck-up prig. He's just he can't even conceive that anything. No, this is the greatest technological terror we've ever. No one's gonna touch this ship. I have no problem. I'm on the fucking Death Star. Fuck you. We're not evacuating. I mean, and that was the thing that made it real. That's why we liked it. You know, now Star Wars, no one talks like no one every time the armorer opens her fucking mouth in The Mandalorian, I'm like, you of all the people that should just talk like a normal person, you know, she should just be like, you know, I don't have an endless supply of Beskar here for you, dude.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, she's never, when she says this is the way, I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You would not, everyone, all these Mandalorians, I don't believe any of them. They don't talk like real people. They would be grizzled war vets that would fucking talk like, they would talk like Space Marines do in Aliens. That's what they would do. And no one does. People have forgotten how to write Star Wars. It's like, go back and watch Star Wars. Don't, and everything should come from there. And now it's, you know, this is the way. How many times do they have to say this is the way? Nobody would say that.
That's true. But I think that's why Andor was, you know, just written so well.
Andor was fucking great. Why? Because it sounds like everybody in Andor is talking like a real person.
Yes.
That's why I loved it.
I mean, you know, there is sex in Andor, so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there is. I mean, yeah. You know, Mon Mothma has video cameras in her bedroom. I'd like to watch those tapes. Woohoo!
Yes. But it is something to think about. And, you know, looking at that Disney cruiser thing that everybody was talking about and kind of these things that they're trying to create for us to go to the parks to be
Wait, hang on.
excited about.
I just want to point out, I don't mean to interrupt, even though I did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Somebody's like, the first time we see Boba Fett, he's in an animated short. Yes, that is true during the holiday special. But when we see him in the animated short, by the way, everyone knows animation's animation. It's not live action, so it's not real. Animation's not real. But yes, I mean, we do see Boba Fett in that animated short. But, you know, it's still, the character is not, he's not working for Jabba the Hutt in that animated short. So, you know, now apparently all he ever does is work for Jabba the Hutt and hang out. And I mean, you literally see in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's like does the nod to Princess Leia dressed as a Bausch. You know, the little nod. Oh, you brought in Chewbacca, nod. Like, why would Boba Fett be standing around in Jabba's palace? Just standing around. Like, why? He's got better fucking things to do. He's a bounty hunter. He doesn't stand around in full armor in a desert planet doing nothing. I mean, it's he's just standing. What's he doing? I hated that. And why would Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, why would he come out and even, unless he's a hired gun, a hired soldier, which he's not, he's a bounty hunter, it made no sense. All he's doing is taking Han Solo back to Jabba the Hutt to get the money, the bounty on his head. He doesn't work for Jabba. And in Jedi, before the special editions, he's shown as being at Jabba's court, like he's hanging out there. Han Solo's been there for months. He would have taken his money and gone off to the next guy who's going to pay him money. It made no sense. I hated that in 1983. I'm like, why is Boba Fett here? I hated that. I thought it was so stupid. And then he comes out and he gets his gun chopped off, and Han Solo knocks his jetpack and he flies off, bangs into the side of the sail barge and falls into the Sarlacc pit. I'm like, fuck this movie. I'm 10 minutes into this movie. I hate this movie already. Return of the Jedi, the most disappointing movie I've ever seen in my life. Hated it. I haven't even had any alcohol and I'm ranting. I'm just drinking water. It's like, my God.
It's always going to be a special film for me because excuse me, it was the first film that I really could go to the movie theater alone and see. Like, it was without parental guidance, let's say that way.
Oh, that's cool. That makes sense. I mean, a lot of people saw Jedi. It was their first Star Wars movie. And I get it.
For me, it was my first one. So it was my first one, Robert, my first time.
It was your first time. Well,
it was.
That's good. That's good. And I don't our friend, the official historian says, Darth Plato says, yes, Jabba the Hutt would have paid to keep Boba Fett on, but the question would be, why? Boba Fett's a bounty hunter. Why would Boba Fett would not be like, oh yeah, okay, you're going to pay me to stand around? I don't believe that. The man, Boba Fett knew Han Solo's tactics. That he was gonna, when they dumped the garbage, Boba Fett knew. There's no way Boba Fett's working and standing around. He wouldn't do it as a character. He would not do it, and I don't think he would work for. Why would he work for Jabba the Hutt? Boba Fett would think all those people are assholes. Like, I'm not gonna stand around with all these dipshits that are hanging out in Jabba the Hutt's court. Why? watching Cy Snoodle sing? Who cares? Like, I'm like, what? He wouldn't be doing that. He would be off doing something else. And that's the thing. That's the problem with what happened to Star Wars. I don't believe any of it anymore. None of it makes. Andor, I believed.
Yes,
like when I was watching Andor, I'm like, I believe this is happening. I believe the people in this movie or this TV show would act the way they act. They talked like it felt like something that I could believe in.
One way out, Robert. One way out.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. Now everyone's mad. Everyone's like going to get mad at me. Burnett doesn't like Return of the Jedi. No, I don't, because it's not good. I'm not. And by the way, you can like it. It's just my opinion. But yeah, not my favorite. See, look what happened. This was one question. Bert asked, yesterday was Star Wars 46 and Return of the Jedi's 40th anniversaries. Any quick thoughts? Were those quick thoughts?
Yeah, they were.
Thank you for that, Bert. I appreciate that. See what happens on Midnight Musings? We're definitely going to muse.
Yes.
Joe Panora
Hi, Joe.
says, oh, this is a good question for you. So let me ask you this. What Joe asks, I agree. There is no issue with swapping fictitious characters where the story doesn't require a certain ethnicity. Netflix's Cleopatra and Gods of Egypt swapping missed the mark. Okay, let me say something about Gods of Egypt. Gods of Egypt is not about our Egypt. Gods of Egypt is about the planetoid that was in Dark City. and maybe some of those people in Gods of Egypt, aliens wound up on Earth, but I don't think that Gods of Egypt, that movie, I dearly love that movie. It is not a good movie. I'm just saying I dearly love it.
But Dark City was a good film.
Dark City's great. But I don't think anybody that owns, and I own the 3D Blu-ray of Gods of Egypt, I don't think that anybody who watched Gods of Egypt is thinking that it's an accurate portrayal of what ancient Egypt was like. Especially when Jeffrey Rush is carrying the sun across the sky. I don't think that anyone... The thing about Cleopatra is, by all accounts, Cleopatra was Greek, and she was not black. And so when they're making a pseudo documentary about Cleopatra, they cast a black actress. While I appreciate what they're trying to do, it flies in the face of the historical record. And the question is, it's like somebody playing Anne Boleyn who's black. Anne Boleyn wasn't black. So if you're telling a story about, and then the question's like, well, why can't in Hollywood history, lots of different actors that weren't, like Ricardo Montalban is not a Sikh, is not an East Indian Sikh, right. But yet he played one in Star Trek. Right. And I would say that, yes, that's, I mean, at the time, there probably weren't a lot of East Indian actors that could have portrayed that role. But I think now you would get a real East Indian actor, somebody who was, you could find somebody that would be more, I don't think an actor has to be the character they're playing. But when you're dealing with some kind of historical accuracy and you have somebody playing a character from history that was a real person, you should make an effort to find an actor that resembles that person, especially if you're trying to say that this is the story of Cleopatra. And that's the thing that like, I don't care. I want the best actor for the role. I've used this as an example a lot, but in the story Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption that was in different seasons, the character of Red was a white dude. And when you see the movie, Morgan Freeman, I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that would ever say they should have cast that character as a white dude. Every single person who's ever seen Shawshank Redemption would tell you that Morgan Freeman's performance in that movie is absolutely flawless. And you would never even consider. I've never heard, ever have I heard anyone ever say, they race swapped that character. they should never. I mean, why does a black dude have to play a white guy that was? No one's ever said that ever in the history of since that movie came out in 1994. It's been 29 years. No one has ever once complained ever
Right.
about Morgan Freeman because there's no one who could have played that role better. And they even acknowledge why do they call you Red? Maybe it's because I'm Irish. I mean, they left that line. It was such a great thing but that's it. It's the reason why I think that everybody gets mad. Morgan Freeman, Frank Darabont probably realized it doesn't really matter what color red is. And when he had the opportunity to get Morgan Freeman, come on. I mean, it's not only Morgan Freeman, it's one of the best performances Morgan Freeman has ever given. He's flawless in that movie, from his voiceover to every scene in the movie. He's flawless. And it shows you can depending on what you want to do, you can make anything work. It's why you're doing it.
Yeah, and I also think there's a difference between a documentary and a dramatization. And I think, something like Bridgerton, which clearly says that it's a pure fantasy. None of it is true. It's pure fantasy. We're just having fun with this. It's a costume drama set at that time in a certain location, but none of it is true. They just want to have fun with it. Queen Charlotte, the same thing. They just want to have fun. It's very different. Enjoying yourself, having fun, going ahead and doing these fantasies versus necessarily saying something is a historical fact. So I think, the idea of just being able to easily interchange with a comment in the documentary, I don't have the exact comment, but there is a comment about, well, my grandmother always said, or my mom always said that this person was this. And, it's not like you're talking about your own personal genealogy, which you could say something like that. My mom always said that we're from here, and I found out we're from there. It's totally fine to do that. But the speculation of a historical figure where we don't have any evidence that they are anything different from what we know them to be, the question really is why, and it's not necessarily helpful. Go ahead and just say it's a speculative dramatization. Call it what it is. It's not a documentary.
Well, I mean, I think here's what I think that look, when I saw Never Say Never Again, the James Bond movie, Bernie Casey, who's a black actor, played Felix Leiter. I was a huge Bond fan. I read all the books. Felix Leiter wasn't a black dude. But in that movie, Bernie Casey's great as Felix Leiter. So I never cared, and I never felt like when I was watching that movie, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Because there'd never been the same Felix Leiter. It wasn't until License to Kill that they brought David Hedison back from Live and Let Die to play Felix Leiter again. So Felix was always different. So Bernie Casey was cool as Felix Leiter. And Jeffrey Rush coming in playing in Felix Leiter in the Daniel Craig movies. Didn't care. Nobody cared. Because it didn't feel like somebody was pushing, that somebody was doing it for any other reason than these are great actors, let's put them in the role because it makes it more interesting. Nowadays, we are in the throes of people making these kinds of weird decisions, not because necessarily the actors are the best for the role, but they're trying to add diversity when there wasn't any. And while I admire that to one extent, on the other hand, I have to ask, why are you doing this? Are you trying to get brownie points? Are you trying to get why is it that the Oscars now, you have to have a certain number of people that, look, there's not a lot of people that go into filmmaking in the first place. And when you're looking at underrepresented people, if there's only 13 or 14% of, say, African Americans of Black Americans, of those 13 and 14%, how many want to go into Hollywood? How many people are insane enough to try and make movies? What percentage of that?
Was talking about this the other day, and on I guess it was a PBS special with this interviewer, and he talked about how the whole thing just disgusts him. The idea of this thing, it's having to meet this demand when there's no reason for it. There really is no reason for it. But I thought it was interesting that he felt he had to come out and say something because he is traditionally very liberal, right, Robert? I mean, certainly for him, he's disgusted by this. And I think a lot of people are disgusted. They're just not saying it. I think it's wrong, to be honest with you. But
well, I think here's the thing. I am an advocate of, I want to hear more people's stories. That's why I want to see the great non-binary fuckfest movie. I want to see all about where are we going to. I'm tired of listening to why is it all about activism, and I'm kind of saying it facetiously, but I want to see. I don't want to listen to gender identity conversations anymore. I want to hear about gender identity fucking conversations. I want to know what that's like. Does that mean are there people that are like all the people that I meet that are coming out as non-binary or whatever? I'm like, they don't strike me as people that are going out on Friday nights and getting laid. I'm like, what does that mean? Tell me all about it. I want to hear the story. So tell me those stories. I want to hear the stories that haven't been told. Give me all the stories that marginalized people tell. The Killers of the Flower Moon, that Osage, the massacre of Osage Indians because they had oil-rich land. And again, the white man came in and wanted to take it away from them and not pay them what it was worth. So they fucking murdered people. Now that story does not make me feel this is what people did. This is what we did to the indigenous population of America. It's part of our horrible history. But I like stories like that because I like to see justice done. And it's also about the birth of the FBI. Where the FBI came from, and this was one of the pivotal early cases that the FBI took on to find out what the hell was going on. And they changed the story. Leonardo DiCaprio said, they shifted the tale to not be so much about the FBI to make it more about the Osage Indians, or the Osage Indigenous. I don't know what the proper terminology would be to use. But which means the story to me is going to be more fascinating. I want to see it, more. I love those kinds of stories. So tell those stories. But this idea that we're going to save the world by getting more people involved in the arts, I mean, it's such a weird thing that a movie, what does the amount of people of certain ethnic backgrounds who work on a movie, what does that have to do with the quality of the film? At the end of the day, I don't understand. And it's a valiant thing to try and do, but rather than do that, why not find money for filmmakers from non, find people that, I always go back to Spike Lee's first film, She's Gotta Have It. No one stopped him from making that movie. He made a movie about a black woman in Brooklyn that had multiple boyfriends, and it was fucking great. And I think he financed it himself. No one helped him, and he's one of the most exciting American filmmakers of the last 50 years, and he's a self-made guy. No one's stopping it. There's more technology now than ever before. Anybody can make movies now. The reason they don't is because movies are really fucking hard to make. And you'd think with all the technology that exists, we'd have all these people making independent movies. They're not, because they're hard. It takes years sometimes. And most people are like, why are you wasting your time making a movie? Where are you going to make any money from that? I mean, hell, I've made movies my whole life and I've never made money from them. So it's like it's hard to do. And I think that what we want to do is allow more people to make movies, make an environment where people that wouldn't traditionally pick up cameras will do that. My friend Frank went to Namibia and lived in a village in Namibia, and they would go there and they'd take video cameras and show the kids in Namibia how to use video cameras to document their lives. My friend did that more than once. Let's see more of that. Let's tell people that they can make movies if they want to. Mm-hmm. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be like, oh, we're going to make it seem like we care more, so we're going to have more diverse crews. Well, there's a problem with that because there aren't that crews that are technically proficient. So who are you going to hire? What you're going to do is you're going to get people that aren't as qualified to be in certain roles, and then that becomes problematic as well.
Well, Tyler Perry commented on that, and that even he noticed that was happening, that a lot of people are getting jobs they're not qualified for, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
It costs money. If people don't know, especially in the film business, every second counts. Every second has a dollar value associated with it. And if you have people that are less than the best, they are literally costing you money and making your movie less good. And it's been happening a lot. You see it all over the business. And everyone's too scared to be like, Well, now we have to make, they hire people and then they have to make a change. So then people are fired and then it costs them more money to fix the problem. So in the long run, it's not doing anybody any good. Let's train. What they should do is start outreach programs and go to schools. The academy should be having filmmaking programs. I mean, I might be involved myself, and this is actually pretty cool. Up in Kern County in July, there is it's a Bigfoot film camp. It's an immersive 4-day. It's like going to summer camp, but we're going to make a movie. You're going to have groups, and the groups are all going to make movies that have to do with Bigfoot.
Wow.
And I'm one of the advisors, so I'm going there. End of July, and people can sign up. You can sign up now if you want. If you want to come to California and you want to go to the the Bigfoot camp, and we're going to make a movie over 4 days. You're going to shoot it, cut it, finish it, and show it in 4 days.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a great thing to be involved in, Robert.
Yeah, they called me up and they asked me. It's very funny. My cinematographer on Free Enterprise, Chuck Barbie, he was the cinematographer of Night Court, believe it or not. He worked for Douglas Trumbull on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And he called me up and he's like, would you be interested in doing this? And I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of young people coming and picking up cameras and fostering an interest in filmmaking for them, count me in. And twice on Sunday, it'd be so much fun. I just can't wait to see what people are going to do. I mean, I was a summer camp counselor. I've been to summer camp 40 years or whatever. To go there and to spend 4 days in the woods making Bigfoot movies, I just hope that there's not like a real Bigfoot or a serial killer up there that's starting to kill the actual filmmakers. Maybe
So
I'll do that.
You make a movie about filmmakers who are in the camp to show other filmmakers how to make a movie, but there's a serial killer.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be funny if I was thinking about is that the advisors or whatever, the I guess we're counselors, that we too should be making a movie, but don't tell the people, the campers that our students or whatever, that we're making a film, and we should do it too.
Interesting.
Which would be kind of funny. I don't know if we could because we're supposed to advise, but it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
It sounds great. It's a wonderful thing to do. That you're passing the torch, Robert. You're passing the torch, as they would say.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Kevin Morales says The Wraith is 10 times better than The Fast and Furious. For those of you,
it seemed very mysterious, and Tom Cruise was the Wraith, right? Was he?
No, Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Okay.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen and Sherilyn Fenn's in The Wraith.
And what kind of car was it, Robert?
It was a car it was a supernatural car.
Well, it was not a Trans Am or anything like that.
No, it was, I don't know what car they used for The Wraith, but it was badass. I saw The Wraith in the theater. I mean, it's like it's not a teen comedy, but it was, teens in the South, in the small community. Yeah, but I like The Wraith. I haven't seen that in a while.
It was good. It was like, he was this ghost that came back. And
take a vengeance on people that wronged him.
It's like a teen. I say it was almost like, it felt like a teen Mad Max, but of course it didn't go that far. But it felt, like there were a lot of mysterious explosions, and the car would be there, and he'd be there, and he had a helmet on, I think. So you could tell what he looked like. Back in the car, and they'd be like, how did that happen? And it was just, it was a cool concept. I think it was really a fun film that they made at that time. So
yeah, I mean, back in the day, I think The Wraith was, I want to say 86. Was it 86? Something like that? Mm-hmm. Wow. Kenneth Colton says, the body armor suits have become too much in John Wick 4. Yeah, I think, again, John Wick 4 suffers from the same thing. I mean, how many people are getting thrown off buildings, or they're falling down staircases and surviving? I mean, it's pretty brutal. Wraith X7 says, the Fast movies have become what the Speed Racer film should have been. Don't you disparage the Speed Racer movie. They should embrace the absurdity and become full-on superhero spy films. Well, they kind of have. I mean, first of all, I love the Wachowski Speed Racer. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it so much. I just wish we can get a 4K of it where the sound is uncompressed, please. But I could see that. I mean, the Speed Racer movie does embrace that. But the thing about the Fast movies is they started from a very small place. You know, Brian was Paul Walker's character was a cop going undercover to infiltrate the car culture to see who's hijacking trucks. I mean, it's so funny to see where it wound up. Kevin Morales says, and I think we both agree with what he says, there is a serious lack of boobies in movies today.
Big old titties, Robert. Big old titties.
Or as they said in Officer and a Gentleman, big tits, round tits, fleshy tits. I think that was Officer and a Gentleman. Or he called them David Keith. David Keith said bodacious tatas. That Lisa Blount had bodacious tatas. That's what he said.
Well, I got my quote from Tropic Thunder. But absolutely, I'm right.
Tropic Thunder, brilliant. I hope after the Mission Impossible movies are over, that Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise make the Les Grossman film.
Yes.
I want to see the rise of Les Grossman.
Yes.
You know, and how did he become that boss? So good. Our friend the Richard says, aloha family, sending in my project on Monday. All right, I will be waiting. I can't wait to see what your project looks like. We shall see. This is from our friend RRTNZ. This is off the charts. Hail Bob and the lovely question. Why is Jim Shooter the greatest Marvel editor of all time? Rhetorical, I know, but what are your thoughts? Cheers. Jim Shooter, the best Marvel editor? Was he? He pissed a lot of people off. Look, I would say that if anything, the thing about Jim Shooter is he began his career writing for comics at a very young age. He lived and breathed comic books. Mm-hmm. And while he did piss a lot of people off, didn't Jim Shooter write Secret Wars 2? Didn't he put the Beyonder in the white suit? I don't know. I don't remember. But I would say that's the thing that Jim Shooter brought. He truly loved comic books, probably more than anybody who ever worked at Marvel, maybe. But I don't know. Our friend Ernest Rister said, by the way, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have any thoughts on Jim Shooter?
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't know enough about him to really even answer that question. So
yeah, it's pretty off the wall. It's a good one. I want to do further research. Ernest Rister says, the Earl of Erudition says, dropping bombs tonight, talking up foreign films I should have seen by now. Speaking of, Rob, I bought Amelie last month because of you. Many thanks for suggesting it. Amelie, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I love Amelie, and if you haven't seen Amelie, you should watch it. I mean, sometimes people would say it's a little maybe too Wes Anderson, but it's different than Wes Anderson. I love that film more. That's why I met Elizabeth. We both bonded over Amelie. In her OkCupid profile, she talked about how much she loved Amelie, and we were a 96% match.
Wow.
So there you go. Hunter Becknell says, also, Rob, I know you don't like Strange New Worlds, but did you see the second season trailer? And if so, what'd you think? Yeah, I saw the second season trailer, and it made me want to scoop out my eyeballs with a teaspoon. Same problem. It looks like tonight at Caesar's Palace in the Coliseum Theater. Come see Vegas's new hot show, Star Trek, starring our handsome captain and his sexually ambiguous crew of women. I mean, everything about that show, it looks like it was made by a bunch of adolescents. I don't buy anything in that show. I get, and that people think, oh, it's more like the original series. No, it's not. It's what pop culture thinks the original Star Trek is. If you want to do a thought experiment, take the last episode of Strange New Worlds where they rip off Balance of Terror. Watch Balance of Terror and then watch that episode right afterwards, and you'll see everything wrong with Strange New Worlds is right there. And with Akiva Goldsman going, yeah, we're canon, we're kind of just bending it, whatever. I'm like, I can't even. I look at that show, and I don't believe anything. People don't talk to each other as if they're actually in that situation. They talk to each other like, what's the mission? I mean, the way that the captain is spoken to by his navigator or whatever. I'm watching this going, this I can't get past. This is so stupid. It's Akiva Goldsman. I can't get past it. I hate that. I don't hate it as much as Discovery, but I hate it. I don't.
And then he puts on an apron and cooks for them and gives them wine. If you're going to cook for me and give me wine, something's going to happen. It's not going to be like.
Well, it's so funny. He's got his girlfriend that's not on the ship. Yes. I mean, if I was Pike and I was in a Star, I'd be banging one of those girls every night. I'd have somebody like
doing something must be happening, because you can't go ahead and cook. It's whining and dining, Robert. But the whole crew, he has his pick of anybody on the bridge. Anyone.
And look at how handsome he is. I know he's older, but it's like that guy Anson Mount is so handsome. He's so charismatic, and it's the 23rd century, man. Free love. We're out, and just as a recreational thing, I don't believe a shred of that show. I watch The Expanse, or I watch Battlestar Galactica. I believe it. People talk to each other like real people.
Anson Mount in a bed, like nude. That's all I asked for. That's all I wanted for season 1. How are they going to top it with season 2? How do you go beyond that? We got the love boat in season 1, kind of the love boat. Is this going to turn into, like, I don't know, the party cruise now? Like, what is it going to be? Is it going to evolve? Is it going to get strange? I have no idea, Robert, but I sure hope they don't lose that love and feeling that we got with Anson Mount and the crew, because he loves them a whole lot, Robert.
I mean, this show looks like to me. It looks like the parody of Star Trek. I just can't. And I understand people like it. I don't mean to put anybody down that likes it. It's not for me. By the way, I watch it. I'm going to watch it and just get angry.
We are going to review it on PGS Treks. I'm sure you're going to review it on your show as well.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
No. No.
Gosh. Really?
I'm going to start doing a For All Mankind after show.
Oh, interesting.
Leading up to the 4th season. The thing is, I would have nothing good to say about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And even when they do episodes that are okay, like, there were episodes that were okay, and then, but they ripped off Ursula K. Le Guin and didn't give her credit. But other than that, and I do like Anson Mount as a performer. I think he's terrific. And certainly they have the production value. But that show is written for fucking 12-year-olds. There is not one shred of adult entertainment to be had in that. And I don't mean sexual. I mean, okay. I want provocative. I want great science fiction. The original series had great science fiction in it. Not all the time, but that show doesn't. That show, Strange New Worlds, it's just compounded silliness. To the point where they even show a shuttlecraft do that cliche thing where it drops below the mountain. And then it comes up, wow, it made it. I mean, from GoldenEye, they did that in GoldenEye or what? It's like, come on, really? Like you, and I look at that and I'm like, what? Am I supposed to think that's cool? I don't think that's cool. I think you've just, again, everything in Strange New Worlds has been done before and done better somewhere else. It just rips off. What they did to the Gorn is inexcusable. The fact that a descendant of Khan, Noonien Singh, Khan never had descendants. The idea that he had when he left Earth, he took everybody he knew with him. All the genetic Supermen. It's like, it's so ridiculous. I mean, the fact that they can't get away from Khan, so apparently he left descendants. Did you pay attention? Did you watch Space Seed? Now everyone knows, like Captain Kirk knows who Khan. Oh, hey. Oh, it's interesting. I never thought I would meet you. I met your great granddaughter, But I found you floating in space. No one mentioned that. I hate it. I hate that show. I hate modern Star Trek. I hate it.
Yeah. It is something to think about. I don't know. I'm tired of seeing Anson Mount looking in like a mirror or in a reflection and seeing his deformed face look back at him. Like I'm done with that. I don't want to see it anymore.
By the
I
way,
would
that's also stolen from a Star Trek novel called Burning Dreams by Margaret Wanderer Bonanno. Not even that's original. And first of all, who thought that was a good idea?
it's horrible.
That's how it's horrible. And again, not an original idea. They took it from a Star Trek novel, just like they stole Una's whole backstory from Dorothy Fontana, from her novel Vulcan's Glory. No credit. I mean, the fact that they're just willy-nilly, and it's so bizarre. It's just, I mean, and people are like, oh, I thought you liked modern Star Trek because of Picard Season 3. Picard Season 3 is fucking Shakespeare compared to Strange New Worlds and Discovery. And I know people are like, you really pissed people off between Return of the Jedi and hating Strange New Worlds, Rob. I'm not going to watch your channel. Unsubscribed. Hey, look, at least you're getting pure uncut me, and I'll never lie to you.
Authentic, raw, truthful.
That's right. That is right. And but the thing is here, I don't begrudge anybody who likes this. This is the thing. I think people need to understand that if you like something, I will never tell you you shouldn't like it. You should like things. It is better to go through life liking things. And there's also going to be people, their first experience with Star Trek is going to be Strange New Worlds. And if they like it, they will delve into the universe further. There's a lot of Star Trek. There's 57 years of Star Trek to look back at. So if you like what you see in Strange New Worlds, you know, and if that's how you're going to begin your Star Trek journey, I think that's terrific. If you find something in there that you like, remember the DNA of Star Trek is there. You know, it's just been irradiated and mutated. But other than that, but I mean that sincerely. I don't, and people who love Discovery, they should love Discovery. Don't listen to me. I mean, I come from when Star Trek was new, and a lot of people can't stand the original series, and I understand that. But to me, the original series is Star Trek. Everything else is a derivation of that. And Star Trek is a product of its time. There's people that, I understand there's people that go back and watch the original series. They can't get past the way it's lit. They can't get past the clothing. They can't get past the special effects. And I understand. I totally understand that. I don't blame you.
I actually am obsessed with the sound effects from the original series. I can't
because
get
they're
enough.
amazing.
And I actually, whenever I move things in my house or my mother does something I like, I can hear the sound effect like she's part of the show. But it's just so much fun to kind of listen to them over and over again and kind of have fun with it. But which is something that I think Picard Season 3 did to perfection with the sound in that, not just the actual storyline, but the sound and everything you heard. It was really just stellar.
Well, Dave Blass, the production designer, said something which is what I've always said. Like, the thing about here's a philosophical difference that I have about Star Trek. Star Trek is a period piece about a future that never existed. Mm-hmm. So within the Star Trek continuum, the realm, you have to treat it like it's real unto itself. You know, and just like any fictitious world, House of the Dragon treats Westeros like a real place. So the reason people like it is because it feels authentic. It feels authentic to Game of Thrones. It also feels authentic that those people seem real. Well, the thing that I have, the problem that I have with modern Star Trek is it doesn't ever credibly establish that it has anything to do, like they don't even understand what the inside of starships would look like. They seem to think starships have a bunch of empty space and that turbo lifts are like roller coasters that travel through. There is no empty space on a starship. Sure, there's a hangar deck, but there's no giant empty. It's not a Star Destroyer. It's not from the Star Wars universe. And the Guardian of Forever, as depicted in Discovery, this is I hate this. So in Harlan Ellison's original script for City on the Edge of Forever, where the Guardian of Forever was introduced, in his original script, the Guardian could take the form of a human being and could be ambulatory. They changed all that. They rewrote that. The Guardian of Forever, in arguably the most famous episode of Star Trek ever, the City on the Edge of Forever, maybe best of both worlds, they show you that it's a ruin from a lost civilization. It's fixed in place. It even says, I am prepared, I've been made to show the past in this manner. I cannot change. It's an artifact of a long-dead civilization that's on a planet, the Gateway Planet. It's been established in Star Trek. It was in the animated series. Discovery just like, nah, we're going to go back to, I read the IDW comic where they adapted Harlan Ellison's original script. We're going to now say that the Guardian of Forever can walk around. He's Paul Guilfoyle, Brass on CSI. He's like our version of Doctor Who. And he can show up wherever he wants. And he can just put up the time portal. And he knows everything about people's past. And I'm like, I'm watching this on Discovery. And I'm like, who the fuck are these writers to go back and literally fundamentally change something that was that is the most beloved episode of the original series? And they just did it. They went back and changed it because somebody in their writing staff said, hey, we can go back, and they wronged Harlan Ellison by changing his script. We're going to go back. I read this IDW comic, and let's do it just like they had it in the comic. And it's just like, okay, so you writers are now better than Star Trek history. I hate that attitude. And we're going to use Star Trek Alex Kurtzman for our messaging. Our messaging. We want to. I'm like, why? Why are you like? Who are you guys? If you're going to work within, like, if I was going to make a World War II movie, and I'm not Quentin Tarantino, there's certain kind of armor. The tanks were a certain way. The uniforms were a certain way. I wouldn't just decide. You know what? I know the Germans, one of the first jets ever made was German, but I'm not going to have the USS Nimitz travel through time like in the Final Countdown. I'm just going to have jets. Let's have World War II and let's just put jets in there. Because, watching Spitfires and Stukas and whatever planes they had in World War II fighting, but they just had propellers. That's boring. Let's just give the Nazis and the British and the Americans and the French jets and have them fight. It'll be awesome. That's what modern Star Trek is like to me. And that's why I hate it so much. I'm watching all this. First of all, it's dumb. It's not smart. And they just change whatever they want. Oh, Spock has a learning disability. Why? We have to make him more relatable. Well, boy, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the character of Spock. You're making him more relatable to whoever. I mean, Star Trek was a show about the best of the best. People you aspire to be. I never wanted to identify. I want them to be more like me. No, I wanted to see them. I want to see people I wanted to maybe one day become.
Yeah,
I didn't want people.
Alphas. They're all alphas, overachievers, best of the class. They're the elite. They're the top of the top, cream of the crop pick of the academy. So all of them excel at everything. There isn't any officer that's having difficulty performing. That's a fantasy. That's not the truth. That's not the truth even today. So, they're supposed to have a higher standard, not a lower standard.
Right. And now they do, because apparently they want the audience. I want to see characters that could be me. Why? Whoever I want to see people that I could become. I didn't want to see a schmuck like me on the Enterprise. There'd be nobody I was never a great student. I had my head in the clouds. I don't want to see a head in the clouds kid on the Enterprise. I want to see people that kick ass. Like you said, the elite, the 99th percentile of people. I don't want to see people that can't do their jobs. You're going to fucking die. You're on the final frontier. And why do you have to act like no one acts like they're in the military on Star Trek Strange New Worlds? They don't talk. There's no military decorum. I don't think anyone knows. They're always making jokes. You know what somebody said to me once on a live stream, or said to me yesterday? They're like, I was a navigator in the Navy. Uh-huh. I only spoke when spoken to. Yeah. I didn't have some informal relationship with my captain. We're in the middle of a bad situation. We're like cracking jokes with one another.
Well, there's a scene where, the girl with the curly red hair, she's a good looking woman. One of the characters is there, and somebody made a remark or told her something, and she was like, "What the fuck?" Like literally was her response, and it was like the most inappropriate comment. It's like that shouldn't even be anything you would even say to really even anybody. But here she was saying it, in the context of while she was on duty. It was very, very odd, very, very strange. And, I was like, this is not an ordinary script. I thought, honestly, Robert, I know that I've said this before and I don't have any proof whatsoever for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was artificially generated, script, because it just seems like one to me.
Yeah, that's why I don't. My problem with modern Star Trek is I don't believe what I'm watching.
Yeah.
They have not established any credibility with me. And people are like, "Well, don't you like Lower Decks?" Lower Decks is a Star Trek farce, meaning it's Lower Decks seems to be a show that's all about people that watch Star Trek. Like everybody on that show knows all the lore and all the jokes and I'm like, I don't. It would be interesting to watch a show like Lower Decks that told really. And by the way, Lower Decks is not bad, but I'm like, it's still too. It doesn't exist on its own. It's a Star Trek greatest hits joke show, and while it does have good characters and tell some interesting stories, I can't get past the fact that everybody who is on that show has clearly watched every episode of Star Trek, so they can. I mean, it's like the jokes. It's like sitting around with a bunch of nerd friends of mine, and everybody's making the same goddamn jokes we made for 20 years. Every time somebody says a joke, it's a line from a movie that we've heard a million times before, and it just gets
said or something. And honestly, they're first. Like they wanted to make everything a first. Well, this is the first time this has ever happened. This is the first time we've ever seen this. This is the first time, and it's like none of the stuff is first. But there's a declaration, a proclamation that it's first. And even when you had said they showed, people kind of like having problems that would have already been solved at that point in the future. It's not an idealistic future. It's a future that's very much like the present day. So that was one thing that really distinguishes it from the other series, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I mean, and
they have then are the same problems we have now.
Yeah, and I just it's nowadays it's all postmodern. Star Trek is all postmodern. Star Trek Picard season 3 was not. It was going back to and there's still people that are arguing with me about that. Look, the thing about Star Trek Picard season 3 is it dealt with real emotions.
Yes.
And it was delving into characters, and I believed who and what they were. And when they're humorous, like Worf when he was making a joke, House of, Musiker, and have some chamomile tea.
Or
Worf,
yeah.
Or Worf knew what he was doing, and that's the difference. I mean, I believe Picard season 3 had real people in it, as opposed to people that weren't real.
And we got breakout stars that are amazing, like Ed Spieler.
Yeah, Ed Speleers, he was great.
Yeah, he was fantastic in that role.
And he was also the kind of guy you want to see in a science fiction action adventure show.
Yes.
Then when he's like geeking out over starships with 7 of 9.
That was incredible. That was so incredible to hear her say how that ship was like her home.
Uh-huh.
I'm so impressed with her. And we needed to hear that because we had never heard that from 7 of 9. I always wondered how she felt, especially coming from where she was in the beginning of the series, where she was regretting her decisions. And now this whole meaningful experience has made her have a different light on her past. It was incredible.
It was totally. Now, this is interesting. So Hunter Becknell, oh wait, hang on. I wasn't there yet. Hang on. Joe Panora says Jeffrey Wright was a great Felix in the Craig films. He totally was. And I love that he called Bond brother because they were both in the service. Mm-hmm. I love Jeffrey Wright.
I love Jeffrey Wright
as
too.
Felix Wright. He was great.
Him in the Batman as well.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. He was fantastic in Westworld.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Wright's great. I think the first time I ever saw him, he played Basquiat.
Oh, did he play?
I think he starred in that Basquiat movie, if memory serves. I think that was the first time I saw him.
Yeah, that wasn't an easy role to play at all.
No. I mean, he was younger, obviously, but yeah. Hunter Becknell says the thing about Khan being white is wrong because the Kelvin movies establish that the timeline didn't change until after Kirk's dad died, and Khan was way before that, so it makes no sense. Oh, I totally agree. I don't think that when they made Into Darkness, I think if you asked J.J. Abrams who Khan was, like if you had said, J.J., tell me that how did Khan fit into the 20th century on Earth? I'm not convinced J.J. Abrams could tell you the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he would know that Khan ruled a quarter of the world's population, that he had taken over most of the Middle East and East Asia. I don't think J.J. Abrams would have known that. I don't think that J.J. Abrams would have understood. Like, here's the thing. If you're going to make a Khan movie, right? If you're going to make a movie about Khan, the movie should open in 1996. It should say 1996, and the camera swoops down and you see some NASA facility, maybe right on the Indian Ocean, or maybe, I don't know where maybe it was in Iran or something. I don't know. But it should have opened with Khan and his followers, the fall of Khan's empire, and them barely making it onto the Botany Bay and blasting off. And you should have seen the Allied factions coming in, and it should have been an awesome action scene. And the last thing is that the ship blasts off and leaves Earth orbit. And then, of course, then you hear the dun, 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 dun. And then after the credits, it would say 300 years later. And then you'd see the Botany Bay drifting in space, and you would see a different starship other than the Enterprise show up. And it would be fucking Peter Weller or whatever, you know. And so you understood the context. I don't think there. And by the way, you watch Into Darkness. It's one of the most awkward things I've ever seen in any movie. When Benedict Cumberbatch he gives it his all. I'm Khan. Nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
They're like, who is he? Like, we don't. Like, why would anybody know? And the thing is, J.J. Abrams, like, everybody knows Khan because they saw him in Space Seed. J.J. Abrams said repeatedly when Star Trek 09 came out that he didn't watch Star Trek as a kid. He didn't like it. He doesn't know who Khan was. I am willing to bet that J.J. Abrams, he probably has now, when he made Into Darkness, he had never seen Space Seed. He never watched it. He didn't know anything about Khan. All he knew about Khan was in Star Trek 2, and that he was from a long time ago. Because there's nothing in Star Trek Into Darkness that would lead you to believe that J.J. Abrams, as the director of the movie, knows who Khan is.
Yeah, they seem like two completely different characters.
Yeah, but also the backstory and the stuff they talk about, like Khan, well, I put my followers into torpedoes. What? You did what? There's people in torpedoes that you're going to launch against a Klingon home? What? None of it makes... I mean, here's a movie where Peter Weller is building a super secret Federation dreadnought in a super secret facility by Jupiter, and yet he has a model of that very same super secret ship on his desk. Like, no one walks in and goes, hey, this isn't interesting. You have an all-black Starfleet vessel with a giant hole in the center of the primary hull. I've never seen that vessel before. What is that? What class of ship is that? Oh, that's my ship. It's called the Vengeance. I'm funneling funds to build it in a super secret base around Jupiter. I mean, it's like, come on. And yet it's in the movie. Star Trek Into Darkness is the most dunderheaded Star Trek. It's the most dunderheaded science fiction movie ever made. None of it makes any sense at all. Khan beams from a one-man fighter to the Klingon homeworld. Literally. How does that work? What magic is this? How do you set coordinates? How does a small ship have enough of a transporter to beam like light? How many light years is it to the Klingon homeworld? Well, apparently not very far when you can beam there from your fighter craft. I hate that movie so much. It's so bad. Sorry. It's 12:08. We've been talking for almost 3 hours.
That's okay. Let's do some more super chats and see how many more do you have left?
I don't know. I have no idea. But Hunter, It makes no sense. I totally agree with you. Thomas Logan says, MGM announced a spy film where Idris Elba plays a Royal Marine presumed killed in action, but in reality is recruited by MI6, who issues him a new name. $1 billion at the box office. Maybe. By the way, did you see the trailer for the new Idris Elba movie called Hijack? That's on
No, I
Apple?
No.
Fucking looks. I love plane hijack movies. Idris Elba looks awesome in this movie. It looks like a pretty good movie. Apple, even when they don't get the movies right, they're handsomely made and produced, so they look good. But this is like an Idris Elba James Bond movie where James Bond's caught on an airplane that's hijacked. It looks fucking good. The trailer dropped yesterday.
Idris Elba did Beast last year, and it was I enjoyed that film. I mean, I know it was with the lion. He's like fighting off this lion, and I'm like, this is a good film. I enjoyed it, and I also enjoyed the Luther film that he made.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
It was amazing, of course, with Andy Serkis, and I even got to tell Andy Serkis how much I liked that film. And Andy had said, I wasn't going to take that role because of what it deals with, the abuse of the internet and all this sort of stuff. But boy, the film was fantastic. I think Idris Elba's on a roll, even at his age. I think he's, getting better and better, Robert.
Yeah, Gabe just got back from spending a month in London with Andy.
Really? How did their month go?
It's going really well. I mean, the movie. So, I don't know if I can say it, but Gabe wrote the script to this movie that Andy Serkis is directing.
You did say that before, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it, but it's not really. It hasn't been really announced in the financing, so I want to downplay it. I've talked about it before, but yes. So Gabe Bologna, the director of Tango Shalom, has written a script that Andy Serkis looks to be directing as his next movie.
Wonderful news, Robert. It's wonderful to hear that.
Very important film.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So is Gabe okay? So they did that. That must have been quite a writing session. That they had. It sounds incredible. I can't wait to see how this turns out.
The script is incredible. It's really, really good. And it does have to deal with a World War II element. And another script that Gabe wrote is being looked at by a very famous director.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear.
Yeah.
That.
So he's doing well. Things are doing well. So Thomas could be. I mean, I don't know. The thing about Idris Elba is that he's 50, and that's why Hijack looks like something. Like, would he have made a great Bond? No doubt. No doubt. I would love to have seen Idris Elba as Bond, but he would have to be like 30 so he could make 5 movies. Yeah. But if you cast Idris Elba as James Bond now, I mean, 2 movies he's into his late 50s and early 60s, and it's, you can't do that. He
was and still is smoking hot, but it is awkward, to see him the way he is. Even when they made that let's say 1/6 scale figure of him from, I think it was the Suicide Squad film. I didn't like what they did with the figure because they made him look older. And someone was like, well, he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
And I
that
said,
was So Toys made a figure of him. And
yeah, that's the one. And I said, I don't care that he's in his 50s. I want to see, Idris. And they're like, no, this is what he really. And so I had to go back to the film. And in my mind, like, I see him a certain way. I remember him from, let's say when he first did Luther or some of his earlier films. But he still is a very, very attractive man. And I think he can draw people to the box office and make people watch. He did what was the name of that film? Beasts of No Nation, where he won a Golden Globe for that film.
My God, he was incredible. And that was Cary Fukunaga.
That's right.
Incredible film.
And I think he would have won the Academy Award, but I think it went to The Revenant at that year. But honestly, Robert, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen. And he scared me to death in that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love his voice.
Yes.
And that Luther movie, I mean, he's a great performer.
He's so good.
And if he's making things like I love the Luther movie, and that's like his signature role, playing that character. Yes. And it was great to see that movie because that was diabolical and it was fun.
It was. Andy was terrifying in that. I was so scared of him.
It was good.
Yeah.
Zachary Zabale. Or is it Zabali? Is it Zabali? I think it's Zabali. Zachary Zabali. I love that name. Your remarks about filmmaking being about IP are discouraging. So why make short films or mini docs with the hope to work toward a bigger project? Art? Well, no, Zachary, now here's the thing. I was speaking specifically about studio filmmaking. Most of the movies that I grew up with watching were independent films. And the real question is, look, making movies is its own reward. And if you want to be a filmmaker, then you make movies. And you make short films to hone your craft. You make mini docs to hone your craft, to learn how to make bigger docs. And as I said, even in our AI world, and that's coming down rapidly toward us, I think that the great currency of the 21st century is going to be you, being genuine, being who you are. People are going to get very tired of AI-generated content very quickly because it isn't going to have the twinkle or the spark that a human being can bring to something, especially in the documentary or short film or whatever space. And, the IP thing with studios is great, but if you want to, is bad in terms of that's all they're going to make. But if you want to live at the independent film level, like and make movies for $2 to $5 million, why not? That's kind of where my career has been at, and I've been having a good time making things. It really depends what it is that you want out of it. Everybody wants to make a living. I get that, and it's always been hard to make a living in Hollywood. It's always been hard, but nowadays with social media and with the internet and the platforming that we have, if you can develop your own audience, you might be able to sustain yourself as a filmmaker. You have to find your own way, but don't be discouraged by what the studios are making, because the studios have gone this IP route now for years, and they've basically abandoned shorter films and movies, or not short films, but films that are made for less money. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of great films being made. Jason Blum, still pioneering. You make a good movie for $5 million. He's got Lee Wanell made The Invisible Man for $8 million. Mm-hmm. Or you look at how they made Barbarian. Roy Lee produced Barbarian. They made Barbarian for $4.5 million. It grossed $45 million domestic or something. And that director got a directing deal for his new movie Weapon at Warner Brothers for $10 million. So, you never know. The real question is, why do you want to do the work? Do you want to do the work to get something out of it, or do the work because you love it? I would say if you want to be a filmmaker, you're a filmmaker. It's in your blood. Nothing can keep you from making films. And hopefully one day one of your films will hit and you'll make some tons of money from it. But if you want fame and fortune from making movies, there's lots of easier ways to make fame and fortune happen for you. Filmmaking is one of the most difficult routes. And by the way, if all you want is fame and fortune, films are too hard to make. You're never gonna get enough fame and enough of a fortune with how hard it is to make movies. So you should only go into making movies if you love doing it. And I think that's true of just about anything. But I understand where you're coming from. Zachary also is a new member of the channel. Thank you. By the way, members, tomorrow, actually today, at 11 a.m. Pacific time, there is a member call. So what we do is you basically get to hang out with me and tell me I'm a wrong idiot, tell me to fuck off. You can tell me whatever you want in the privacy of other members. So it's a lot of fun. And by the way, no judgment. You really can't tell me to fuck off if you want, and I will still be my smiling self and say, I appreciate your honesty. But it's fun. The member calls are always fun. Really great to have them. So tomorrow at 11, if you're a member of the channel, I will see you there. In the community tab after this show, I'm going to go put up the invitation and the link. Hunter Becknow, thank you, by the way, for a $20 super chat. Thank you, Hunter, for supporting the channel tonight the way you have. I very much appreciated that. Rob, I interacted with and knew Margaret Wanderer Bonanno on a discussion board for several years. I'm not going to unsubscribe from your channel just because you disagree, but I do chuckle when you get pissed over Trek. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I get pissed. I can't help it. Was she nice? I want to believe she's nice because she wrote a couple of great Star Trek novels. Big fan of hers. She wrote Strangers from the Sky, and that is an incredible Star Trek novel. I'd love to hear what you think about her. Norwegian Kryptonian says, what are your thoughts on the rumored all-female reboot of Fast and Furious? I mean, look, if it's good, I'll watch it. But I just think that, you have to make me believe that if it's an all-female reboot, that all these girls are gearheads, that they all love cars. And I'm not saying that they don't, but if it's going to be an all-female reboot, are you going to tell me that there's going to be a female Dominic Toretto, and that there's going to be a female Paul Walker that's going to go undercover and hang out with Dominic Toretto? The female Paul Walker undercover cop is going to infiltrate. I don't, only because I've never really heard of an all-girl car racing group or that hijacks trucks or whatever. I mean, whatever they're going to do. Look, I liked Ocean's 8, the Sandra Bullock Ocean's 11 movie, where she was Danny Ocean's sister or whatever that was. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
Julia Roberts was in it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that movie. I have no problem if somebody's going to do an all-female reboot. It just has to be good. And I think that, like, if you watch the all-female reboot of Ghostbusters, I think that one of the problems with that, like in the original Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters themselves, like Egon and Spengler, it's all deadpan. Like they believe everything that's happening is absolutely real.
Yes.
And Bill Murray is kind of us. Like he's like, none of this is bullshit, is real. And it is a square, or whatever. And the all-female Ghostbusters, all of those characters were movie people. Like again, I didn't believe them. It was all mugging and all it Leslie Jones was, once she shows up in the movie, it's like, okay, this movie is not, I can't believe in it. It's just the whole thing is a goof. None of these characters have grounded me. I don't believe what I'm watching. And I wanted to, because there's a lot of talented people in it. I have no problem with all-female reboots. You just got to make me believe. And if you're going to give me an all-female Fast and Furious movie, you have to make me believe that there's a group of women that are racing cars in downtown LA. I've never seen anything like that before, and I have no problem. Maybe there is, and I just need to know. But make me believe. Make me believe, Norwegian Kryptonian. Marco has been a member of the channel for 18 months. Well, thank you, Marco. Scott Bartholomew says, I am so sick of original works being remade again. Today's Hollywood is so devoid of originality. I agree. I totally agree. I wish that weren't the case, but they're risk averse and they can only make things that are previously. There's no more visionary people in Hollywood. Again, it's still the same business, MBA educated Ivy Leaguers that are still running the studios that don't know anything about storytelling. They don't know what's good or bad. Now more than ever, they have to have somebody else, analytics, marketing, whatever. Somebody has to tell them, well, this is what the audience is looking for. But the audience is looking for what they've always looked for, entertaining times at the movies. Give them great characters and great stories. The problem is nobody knows what that is because no one's reading anymore. No one's even watching the classic movies anymore. They don't even know what they're talking about. They're talking about movies. All they know is what has come out in the last 20 years. And it's really all that jazz. They don't know what that is. And if they did watch it, they wouldn't like it. They don't even know what storytelling is good anymore. And that's the real problem. And yet they're getting hired because, hey, no. Ivy League MBA. It doesn't matter what they know about movies. Ivy League MBA. That's what corporate hiring wants. That's what they want. Ivy League MBA. But what he doesn't know about movies. Doesn't matter. She's got a Ivy League MBA. Hire her. So, Joey Hamilton says, our friend Joey says, are you staying on tonight? I have a letter to send. I am not staying on tonight. But I'll be back tomorrow night. Thomas Logan says, Idris Elba is 3 years younger than Hugh Jackman, who's back as Wolverine. I'll take a 007 trilogy starring a grizzled Royal Marine colonel over some young rando. Well, I mean, they want to hire that could be cool. but they want to hire somebody younger. Look, to be honest, I would rather see Idris Elba in his own franchise. That's why I like seeing Luther's his signature role. It was great they made a Luther movie. Give him something new. Why put him in a Bond movie? I think James Bond is over, to be honest. I think that James Bond is a character, and I'm a huge James Bond fanatic. They need to retire that character. The world is a different place. James Bond, all they're doing is they're changing the character to make him fit the times. We saw that with the Craig franchise, and they're just going to keep doing that and try and make James Bond work in the modern age, and he doesn't. As M said in GoldenEye in 1995, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. You're a product of the Cold War.
And I like it. I'm sorry.
I know. So do I. And guess what? That is the end of our super chats. Hang on, let me check the tips. I know you're tired. It's late for you. So Julian Mushkin, Sonny Dominguez sends in a tip and says, "My sexual awakening happened watching Teen Wolf, the dressing room scene. Kids these days, awakenings happen watching hardcore porn on Pornhub." It's true. Lust has been lost to the youth, and having a chance to mature into their sexuality, rather rushing the experience. I agree with that. Like if you could just go to, there's no everyone's gone from 0 to 120 miles an hour a second. Like there's no mystery anymore. And can you imagine? It's no wonder that people are wondering about their gender identity. If you've watched hardcore pornography at 11, how are you don't know anything about what these people are doing or how they're doing it. And if that's what you're seeing, I'd be like, I don't want to do that. Yeesh, how do I get to learn how to do that? It looks too fucking hard. Like,
it's a turnoff.
Total turnoff. If I was a kid watching hardcore pornography on the internet at 10 and 11 and 12, I would, and that's why the rates of premarital sex and teenagers having sex have plummeted. Because why would you want to do that? I would imagine my 11-year-old self would find it wholly unappealing. I mean, just the mystery of kissing a girl at 11 was enough. Maybe grazing against a breast. But when you can see everything, any way, shape, or form. I mean, can you imagine like you're 11 years old and you're watching some guy eat some girl's ass? Like, how are you going to even fathom that? I'm like, I'm never doing that. I mean, I don't know. Stubble McShave, take us in home, says, I've started Project Hail Mary. That's Andy Weir's new book. Only a few chapters in it. It's really good. I think it's right up your alley. You'd like it. I have Project Hail Mary. I have not read it. I can't wait to read it. Everyone tells me how great it is. So I'm going to read it. But Stubble, you're the constant reader of this group, so I will take your word for it. I'm sorry Lael couldn't join us tonight. It would have been a fun conversation, but I know I got back to him late, and we started late. I want to thank you for being here. We will end this lovely stream. I'm not gonna stay up and talk to randos because I've got some things I have to do and set up the stream for tomorrow, the member call. I want everyone to watch Lana Ewan's review of Jacob's Ladder. I know I'm going to because I haven't seen it yet, but it is up on the Burnettwork channel, and there's new shows. You were streaming the new Star Trek Resurgence game. Yes. Which has gotten good reviews. And we've got tomorrow another episode of Architects of Imagination dropping at 6, which is a very good show that not a lot of people are watching. But if you're interested in video games, you should watch it. And I'll do a Robservations tomorrow as well. And all that. And I have to say that I'm still trying to put it all together. It's in flux. But the Imagination Connoisseurs panel show is being worked on. And whining about movies, got some graphics for that. That's coming back. So things are happening on this channel. June is going to be a very big month for us all. So we'll talk all about that. Very exciting. And I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel via Super Chats and Tips. I want to thank the lovely for billowing. And I want to thank everybody, my moderators. Tom Jr. Jackson's here. I don't know if Lord Toth or I don't know if anyone else was here, Tom, or just you were. By the way, Tom Jr. Jackson sent me 2 birthday cards. and I want to thank him for those 2 birthday cards. So because of the rains, a couple last 2 weeks ago, right by my birthday, I think on my birthday, they they stopped delivering mail until the post office said we can't get the mail truck up to where we live down this lane where everybody's mailbox is, so they wouldn't. So they were holding our mail, and I was going to get it, but I wasn't looking at it. And today I opened my mail from the last week and a half, and lo and behold, Tom Jr. Jackson sent me not 1 but 2 birthday cards. Thank you, Tom, for that. I very much appreciate you doing that, and thank you. I got to see that, so that was very nice. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. Like I said, there will be a members call tomorrow or today at 11 o'clock. And what do you have going on?
Well, guys, as you know, I am playing Star Trek Resurgence every day, doing a live stream, as well as Star Wars Jedi Survivor live stream. So I'm doing 2 gaming live streams every day. But I'm continuing on with promoting other creators' work. We have I guess about a week ago, I did a promotion for Heath Robinson from Heath's Geekverse. He just had a new book out called Goodnight Sword, which is a Kickstarter campaign, and it did very well thanks to the support here from everybody in the channel. But I'm also going to be doing a watch party for his show, The Cultist, which is about role-playing games. And it's a very unique show that he produced and directed and stars in with a team of very creative people. And it's going to be premiering here on the Burnettwork season 1 and season 2. So there's going to be a watch party for that. Also want to bring in a young lady by the name of Maria Espino, who has a channel called After the Sequels, and is working with a crew to make a Star Trek fan film. And she just had her first live
Star Wars.
Excuse me, sorry. Star Wars fan film. Sorry, guys. And it's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see what she's going to have. I'm going to bring her on the channel here. We're going to talk to her about everything that she has coming up. So I'm excited about that as well. We also have Cat's Corner, guys. Catherine Cook's show, Cat's Corner, which is going to continue on. She has a lot of different movies and things that we're going to be going through. There's going to be another episode coming up for that. Of course, Ladies of the PGS on Monday nights. Catherine will also be co-hosting with me this Monday. Guys, I'm so excited for all the events that we have coming up for this, for the Burnettwork here. We also are going to be looking at Kubrick on Kubrick, which is a film that really features Kubrick's independent clips and shorts that he talks about how he makes his movies. And we're going to look at that documentary here on the Burnettwork, and a bunch of other things coming up. We have some other series that I was considering looking at, but there's much more going on. I did just want to mention and thank everybody for your support. And this is one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. I'm so grateful to everybody for being so kind. And Robert, of course, thank you to you. Just love doing musings with you every week.
It's so much fun, and I'm sure Lael will be here next week. And by the way, you know what? I just got a notice from Yoast at Jazz Inc.
Yes.
That I'm in the first batch of snow speeders that's going to be sent out.
Wow.
And it's been like years.
I know.
Years. So it's been interesting. It's funny because I didn't think that was going to come out anytime soon. So I guess it is.
Wonderful.
I can finally take my my snow speeder Luke pilot out, figure out the box, put it. So that's exciting. That's supposed to happen at the end of June or something, but that'll be good.
Okay.
But anyway, that's great. And here we are, everybody, at the end of the show. And yeah, other than that, I would say thank you for musing at midnight. This was a ranty, ravey midnight musings.
So good, Robert. So good.
It was so much fun. All right, my dear. Well, I will see everybody later. I'll see everybody tomorrow, literally, the members. And go watch Lana Ewan's new review. I'm going to go there right now and watch it myself. Mm-hmm. I can't wait. All right, kids, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say, have a better night. Okay. I shut the